a long time. It started actually in the late 60s. It started in education. You see a lot of black women in college vis-a-vis black males. Let me make it clear to you that black men were recognized as the reason that you were having campus rebellions. Black men were the leadership against injustice on campuses. They needed to get rid of college educated black men or radically diminish their numbers. And there's been a systematic replacement of leadership. So every time, and both parties, the Republicans have Candace Owens, the Democrats have Kamala Harris, and they've got Maxine Waters, and they've got Ayanna Pressley. You have practically, even black men in high positions are largely silent. The people that you see running their mouths, running their traps, are almost always black females. No other group of people is it so disparate. The disparity of the people doing all the talking and advocacy tend to be a predominantly male or a good mix of male and female. Ours is overwhelmingly female, and some men now and then. And even the men are very careful. The men are often gay, or the men are interracially married, or the men are very, very cautious. So women can be outrageous. They can be like Simone Sanders, totally over the top with her Magic Johnson's son-looking ass. These people that are female, Donna Brazile, you name it, they say basically whatever they want. Black men, you better not. It's not tolerated. I worked in television. The women could say and do almost anything. Male had to be careful. They fire you on the spot. You halfway made. If you made the secretary mad, they're ready to fire you. Black women can be loud because you know what? For all of that bluster and loud talk for black women, they're just props of white supremacy if they're not in alliance working with black men for our freedom. So all these professional black women, I used to be in admiration of these sisters. I used to. I was stupid. Like I said, I used to be a feminist until I realized I was dumb. I'm sorry I was so stupid. I did not know that being a feminist, being a male supported feminist, that made me some kind of an asshole. I didn't know I was an asshole. I thought it was for black people. I actually thought that black women that were out here, they were really fighting for black women and children. They're liars. All of them. No, not one. Like they sing in church. Not one of them goes to the mat for the black people. None. None. They're all on Emily's list. Barbara Lee, this little Richard-looking thing from California. None of them is for black people. The biggest traitors in our community right now are professional black women. Second to them are simp, soy boy black men. Like, did you see? And you should hold it. Look for the picture of Don Lemon, who makes himself. He looks like he looks like, what's the broad's name? Kamala Harris. In fact, he looks better than Kamala Harris. In fact, why does Kamala Harris like Chef Boyardee?
Why?
He has meatballs.
Yeah, soy boy, Devin. Yeah.
So yeah, we can do the news. We just had to get this in. I want to say hi to all of you guys who are on the Angry Black Men's Book Club channel.
Yeah, you were finally able to connect it. I just got the alert.
Yeah, I finally got around all of the bullshit they were putting me through. Everybody, I'm here having a conversation with Brother Dome, aka Q. And when he was young, it was probably Screw. With LetsTalk2. In fact, that is a channel I hope you support. It is a partner as we have the United New Black Media Network where we're supporting each other, big and small and tall and so forth. And we will be working with other people that want to get the news out. You don't have to have 100,000 people to make an impact. If you can get a good 1,000, you're doing good. You need to know that Frederick Douglass's newspaper never sold more than a few thousand copies of that many. You only need a handful of people to get anything done in Black America. And so we're not worried about crowds. I want to thank all 5 of you that are here right now and give you in fact, MFM, 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 everybody. Motherfucking money. We need it. We've got to have it. You gave it to Zelensky. You gave it to Satan Yahoo. You've given it to everybody but us, and we're here to get our MFM. MFM, and look, get it in your head that they owe you. We wouldn't be in the store stealing shit if we had what belonged to us. That's real ass talk here. And I want to say to you, since we talked about Israel, they just approved to give them $14 billion. And by the way, they gave $14 billion to Israel so they could kill Palestinians. And yet, just a few weeks ago, Joe Biden acknowledged that Black HBCUs are owed what? $13 billion. His solution was to ask the states to give the money that they've refused to give since the 1950s. That's some bullshit.
Every HBCU should be speaking out against it, but they ain't gonna say
they're not going to do it because they're boule. And this is why I'm so glad, Angry Black Book folks, you're here. I don't know how long Brother Q's going to be talking to me, but this is Shirley Chisler or Shirley Chisholm, and she was a Zeta. She was a boule Caribbean tether. Pro-abortion, pro-LGBTQ, for a racist, white, lesbian, feminist advocate, this lady here. She was from the Caribbean, and if you read the book, I read her quote, "We Caribbeans are taking over." I will be reading, in fact, if you guys come on after, I'm going to be reading from chapter 11 to chapter 16. I'm going to try to get that done tonight. I got to go to church to baptize one of my sisters, right? Got to do that. Yes, I believe in God. Yes, don't let the cussing fool you. In fact, some of the best prophets were cursing. And in fact, cussing is good for the soul, especially when you've been provoked. Coons make me want to cuss. Y'all hear me? My cousin Marvin Gaye used to say, make me want to holler. Well, coons make me want to cuss.
Well, you know, Dr. Short, I got to mess with you. Who else you found out was your cousin the other day?
Well, we're not going to talk about that, bitch.
Yeah, I thought that was
okay, so that's okay. So all of you on the Angry Black Men, there are 4 of you. Don't worry. I'm just warming up. We're going to be doing this. Let me see. What time is this? Like 9 something. You know, this is early for me. You know, so I'm going to be on this for a while. Angry Black Men's Book Club.
He said, what would the HBCUs do with the money if they got it?
They would steal it. But the rich white elite steal, and they advocate the name of the poor, and they steal. Our Black elite don't even know how to steal. In fact, they'll steal like from the little programs from the little broke Black folks that get some real money because they're cowards. They're frauds. They demand redistribution of wealth from the white rich to the Black poor, and they take it all. They're grifters, they're liars, they're betrayers. And until we turn on them and despise them, we need a revolution against traitor, so-called successful Black people like Oprah Winfrey. They're devils. They're enemies. And our biggest problem, and I'm going to tell you, I have to go through this with my mother all the time. They mention someone, tell them, I don't respect that bitch or this bitch. They've done nothing for us. I don't care if they're on television. In fact, the proof that they're no goddamn good is that they're on mainstream television to deceive our asses. Our problem is we've been taught when you see someone Black showcased, they must be about something. The average wino that reeks of cheap wine in his own piss has more dignity and integrity than anybody Black that you see showcased on mainstream television. I said that. And I've met some crackheads with more dignity than people I met in the universities and everywhere else. I've met gangbangers that are more real. And I'm not saying that it's good to be a gangbanger or it's good to be a wino, but those folks are hurt because the system has been structured to destroy us two ways. Everybody else does it to us, and then we've got weaponized coons, highbrow and lowbrow, upper class and lower class, ripping us to shreds like human termites. And we got to cut our losses. In fact, where's my damn book at? Um, Angry Black Book Club. This is the next book. Oh yes. Uh, this is the next book. I might even read some of this tonight just to give you a precursor. Brother Juan and I are going to be looking at this book. We'll be talking about niggas and guns. Niggas and guns.
They revolted down that piece, huh?
Niggas and guns. Niggas and guns. We're going to be talking about guns. Everybody needs one. 6.5 million people in this country. They don't. How their ass is going to make it? They're going to take it from you. They're going to mug
So
you.
that's the next book you're gonna go over, Dr. Short?
This is in the series. We Will Shoot Back will be one of the books that I'm featuring. Oh yes, it is. And there's another book called Negroes and Guns. And yes, I do want donations. There are about 5 more books I need to get. I have to spend, and to keep up, to share this, I have to keep buying shit. I got boxes and boxes of books, but it's nice. I've been saving up to share this with people, what I've been running across. This book is fantastic. We Will Shoot Back. It's my next book. I may even read some of it tonight. And just to give you a precursor, because I'm going to be doing with Brother Juan, but the Angry Black Men's Book Club, we're talking about Shirley Chisler, the person that wanted us to kill our babies, and she was supporting studs and supporting the LGBTQ and helping illegal aliens because her ass is a tether. Shirley Chisler. We're talking about, in fact, what we'll be doing with the Angry Black Book Club. We're going to be talking about traitors, Black nationalism, and Black resistance, right? And we'll be looking at both, juxtaposing people who have fucked us that we lit by, like sorry ass Bayard Rustin. I have to get his damn book. And the thing is, this is a reason why I want to read it to people. A lot of people won't read it themselves, is to have an opportunity to share it with a few hundred people who might otherwise not get the time or the opportunity to learn about it. So I've got books on Black nationalism. I'm going to be talking about, because we need to understand that we are people, we're a nation, and they don't teach it anymore. They don't mind. In fact, let me just break this down to y'all so you can understand the bullshit that's going down in the Palestinian situation. All right. Part of what's going on in the Middle East, and it's been going on for the last 80 plus years. Actually, it's been going on for over 100 years. The English dogged the Arabs who wanted one Arab state from Morocco to Saudi Arabia. That's what they thought they were getting when they supported the English and the Allies in World War I, and they got betrayed. The Arabs wanted one country. They had been under the Ottoman Turks since the 1500s. They broke loose after about 400 years, and they wanted to have their own thing, and they didn't get it. And the English and the French have been against Arab nationalism. Hamas is a religious group. The Wahhabists in Saudi Arabia are a religious group. The people that the Westerners like tend to be highly religious, Islamic types of people. They do not like secular nationalist people in the Middle East. Nationalism is frightening because if you have a strong nation, you'll stand up to their white nations. In America, they don't mind women's rights, Black gay rights, trans rights, illegal rights, but they don't like Black people thinking of themselves as a people, as a nation. They're terrified of that. You get a black group that says, hey, look, where people that's come together, they start killing people. They've literally purged the whole idea of black folks being a nation within a nation. They've killed off those kinds of people. And basically, they brought in Obama. They brought in Kamala. They brought in all these black Democrats and others who basically just want to go along and get along instead of saying, we are a people, we are unique, we're to ourselves. People need to be reminded that we're a nation within a nation. In fact, the President's Kerner Commission study released 56 years ago called the Kerner Commission study said that black people and white people were two nations separate and unequal. The president's study said we're a nation, and yet we've got folks saying, I'm just an American. You're dumbass. And the same way that you had that here, the Palestinians became an ethnic national group, that the Israelis don't want the Palestinians to be a people, not nationalistically. They don't. And so they help create Hamas, and Hamas has become a sacerdotal Frankenstein for their asses. Because the PLO, that many of you may have forgotten, called the Palestine Liberation Organization, led by Yasser Arafat, who was poisoned by the government of Bibi Netanyahu way back, not too long ago. And he was replaced by this sorry dude named Mahmoud Abbas, who's head of what replaced the PLO, or Al-Fatah, the Palestine Authority, which is the government that comes out of the Palestine Liberation Organization when they stop being a terrorist group. And the nation of Israel is against the Palestinians having their own unique nation. So they've made the Palestinians a stillborn people, not able to walk free or control land or be anything because they're white, they've got guns, and they say so. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? So Hamas was created to fight against Palestinian nationalism, and it's backfired. Black Lives Matter was created to fight against black nationalism. That's why that shit is everywhere. And that's why I'm against those damn hoes. And the bitch Colores is my cousin. We come from the same place in Georgia. It's called Lincoln County, Georgia. There's a big Colores plantation, okay? That bitch is my cousin. That no good bitch with the ring in her nose is stealing money is my cousin. I'm sorry. It's not me, guys. I'm true. And even if I had that much money, I'm not greedy. I would have probably got a house and not a mansion, and I would have took care of me and mom, and the money would have gone back to the movement. Somebody sent me a donation for me to get a computer. I have not blown that damn money. I'm still holding it because I need to get a new one, but I'm using the one that I got. Some people lied to our people. I'm not going to call names. Some of them in the conscious community, and they really hate Christians in the Bible because it teaches you can't steal or lie. That's why those folks hate the Bible. It checks their crooked nigger asses. And they'll tell you about the people who don't follow the Bible in the church. Well, damn, you don't follow the Bible outside the church. You're no fucking different from them. And anyone that does follow, like me, when you see me and you know who I'm talking about, you know good. Agent nigger, I won't say what city you're from in the Middle Atlantic. You know who you are.
The one that walked away from you, turned his head?
I'm not talking about good people. There's some fake ass people out here calling themselves leaders. They've got access to millions of people. You can't see anything concrete, no matter how much they take in, no matter how many people follow them. You can't find one victory for our people. Not one. And so I want to tell everybody, Angry Black Men's Book Club. The next book is We Will Shoot Back. And there's another book called Negroes and Guns. I think I'm going to get it. That's why I want some donations. I need to buy I need to buy about 10 or 12 books, and these things are expensive, but that's why I'm like, and these, what I'm saying, Q, when I be telling you about books you buy, this shit, you start running out of money and shit trying to keep up with this, but you need to have it because I'm going to tell you something. If you're not watching, they're closing the schools, they're closing public libraries, they're ending history being taught in the school to suppress and destroy us as a people. If you don't have your own library in your own home, you may never be able to understand what's happening to you. You owe it to yourselves. Like you have good records and good music and good videos and good electronics, you have to have a good black home library. With that library, you should have seeds, guns, herbs, and food stored up. I got a box full of food in case we have an emergency, and we're going to get some more. We're at war. We're at war.
I got something I'm gonna do during the broadcast. Make sure you put in the chat hashtag Dr. Short. Just put hashtag Dr. Short. That's it. I got something real special for you guys tonight. Hashtag Dr. Short.
Oh, and by the way, brother, I hope you become one of my Patreon supporters. I support you. I hope you join me on Patreon.
Dr. Short, I got you.
I want everybody to follow me on Patreon. I've been having so much fun. Y'all have no idea. All y'all listening, if you knew that YouTube won't even let me post my shows, they're holding up me being able to let you know I'm doing something. And I don't care. I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep doing this. But I'm filming on Vimeo. Hey, Vimeo. Fuck YouTube. YouTube. I'm not going no place. I'm MFM.
Hashtag Dr. Short, you guys.
I'm going to be out here.
Dr. Short don't even know what I'm doing while I'm saying hashtag.
I want you guys to hang in here. It's like 2 minutes after 10. I'm going to do this. I want to remind everybody, the Angry Black Men's Book Club. And we're going to go a couple hours tonight, y'all. So take your time. I don't really get started until about like 11:30 any damn way because I'm a night creature. I can't wait until I get married.
Hashtag Dr. Short, you guys.
I want everybody to know that we're going to be in on Shirley Chisler, and I'm going to probably do an intro to this book. God, I love this book. We Will Fight Back. I want to remind everybody I have a Patreon. I want to thank the 16 people that are backing me. I will be working on having exclusive content for just Patreon people. In fact, for all of you that like Brother Bag X, I'm only doing Bag X on Patreon unless I'm a guest.
Hold on. Brother Bag X, I got him. You know this guy?
Of course I know. My father had children outside of wedlock. And he's like, an illegitimate family member. Nobody I'm proud of. So
make it one word. Hashtag Dr. Short. Don't put the period. Make it one word. One word. Hashtag Dr. Short.
We're gonna be doing Coon Buster and other things, and that's gonna be on Patreon. And some stuff will be for everybody because for me, it's not always a hustle, although we all need it. Because I'm working on some business. I may have.
You didn't tell me Brother Bag X was so disrespectful.
Well, Brother Bag X is a representative of black folks that don't give a damn, that should, and they can't unless you make them. Brother Bag X embodies the worst in black people that we make excuses for. Sort of like the woman that's had 10 kids by 10 different men and all the men were dogs. I'm thinking after the third child, you're a hoe, right? But they don't think they know. If they had 100 kids by 100 different men, all the men are dogs and she's Virgin Mary living for Jesus. We have, so Brother Bag X is the embodiment of stuff that we all see and we know is real and nobody deals with. Sort of like the dude that saw a woman that got shot. Damn, he should have raped her first. How do you get sex out of a murder? I've seen people like that. It's damn. He's thinking about her pussy. She's like on the floor, cold. You ask someone, why'd you shoot the other person that's in the car? And you know what they say? They want the passenger side. They think that's an answer. I'm telling you, a lot of the criminals, I have a lot of criminals in my family, so many. Um, and you know, I get along with criminals, except for when they do something. So, look, brother, come back because I need you to stand there for 1 second. I'm going to do something for a second. I'll be right back. I think Brother Q stepped out. But look, everybody, I want to say hi to all of you guys over there in Facebook. Hi to everybody watching on Vimeo. Hi to the nine there. Hi to you up in Facebook. Hi to all of y'all. We're going to go into our stuff after this conversation. So when I stop with Brother Q, it's going to be on for the Angry Black Men's Book Club. Y'all don't mind. Just hang out for a minute, you know, be stimulated, think, and be ready. I know we're going to be talking about traders, sellouts, but we're also going to talk about heroes and heroines. And that's important. If I tell you something bad, I want to bring you something good. That's why I said, you know, I did all this stuff on Shirley Chisholm. Shirley Chisholm. Doesn't she look bad? Come on, somebody say she looked bad. Isn't she had hard looking? Come on. Y'all wouldn't date her. Who would want to pay her child support? Nobody watching this would want to be owing her child support. If you did, you probably would be on suicide watch. Maybe you did it when you were on crack or something. This is our next book. I'm going to be doing this with Lone Wolf Firearms on YouTube. I will be doing this book, reading this, and others, but in particular this one. This is a fascinating book. A fascinating book about black folks and guns. We got to get black folks out of being afraid of firearms. You're going to need them. You're going to need to strap up. I'm not an expert. That's why I'm going to get you a person with firearms, somebody that knows about firearms. I see two comments on my channel. Okay, El Negro Hotep, hello. Hey, Terry Hatcher, how you doing? R Dole, what's? Yeah, it's R Dole. Okay, y'all. Let me just say hi to y'all here in StreamYard. We're just trying to get people used to doing this. Because, you know, I didn't do this for a long time. Hi, everybody. I want everybody to share this Angry Black Men's Book Club. Take the moment to do that. Dole, Brother Terry, Brother Negro, everybody share this. We're going to be doing more and more, and you're going to see more collaboration. I'll be doing stuff with Sister Sean. I met this new sister. We're going to be talking about like bullshit here in the DC area that's gotten out of hand. It's time. I have waited. I couldn't stand it anymore. I couldn't take it anymore. I got sick and tired. Sick and tired of the bullshit. And that's why I said, you know what? And I wanted to just do this. I love books. Um, the only thing better than an open book is open legs. Anyway, I'm going to take a break for 1 second. Give me exactly 1 second. Don't go away. I'm going to be back. I'm going to take these shades off. And by the way, let me show y'all something. How y'all like my fake ass dye job? I had to like get some for just for men and shit. I got tired of looking like I was an octogenarian. in as much as I'm not 60 yet. So hell, I'm trying to at least look relatively, not completely dried up and ossified. So yes, I put some shit in my hair today. But let me see. Let me clean these things off. Nothing like dirty glasses. Well, dirty cooch. It's almost as bad as dirty glasses. Uh, so hello to everyone. Everybody. Did you guys see the Palestinian march? You know I didn't go. I'm not going no place. No place. Brother Terry, Keith Williams. Who else is up in here? It's just a handful. Who else is on here? All y'all say hi. Hey, Phil, Hightower, Coleman, what's up with you? All of y'all, it's taken me forever getting good news from the doctors. My heart's no longer completely jacked up. Uh, oh my God. I might even recover all these drugs that they were trying to put me on and trying to like not go crazy. Let me take a second. Oh, 100% rotten podcast. I'm okay. I'm gonna have to get me some things now. Q, you're back. Come back because I need to use the restroom. I have to take a piss break, really. And I'm not gonna do a little jug and stuff in front of y'all. He'll say, "Dr. Short's nasty. He pissed on this thing. He'll do anything for views." It's not true. I'm gonna go and piss in another room, and you won't even hear it.
Yeah, my system shut down for me. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, well, no, it's because we're about to start talking about niggas and guns and foreign affairs. And so let's see, it's 10:11. You think we can go until about 11:20, 11:15, and then I can take over from there and do my Angry Black Men's Book Club. Because I have folk out here waiting. I see Brother Terry Hatcher and Miss Coleman, and all these people are ready to go. We haven't been doing this stuff for a while. I think I'm back to normal mostly. Y'all have no idea. They say when you have a heart attack, everybody's afraid you want to commit suicide and shit. I don't want to commit suicide, although my finances have. A lot of shit goes bad when you get sick. Shit just goes bad. So I just sometimes just don't do anything. So I haven't done anything for a long time. And by the way, don't ever buy that Indian shit for your hair. My hair was green. People would have thought I was trying to celebrate Pride Month. I had to do Just for Men's about 10 times, man. I had to keep washing my hair to turn the shit back to at least brown. I mean, I look like a self-hating leprechaun, like a black LGBTQ, or should I say a swirl between the Irish and the black queen with green hair. I was like, damn, I look like a Afrocentric queer leprechaun. I was washing my hair trying to get that green shit out. Damn. I was embarrassed. Okay. And I was thinking my hair would be black. I mean, at least I would like for it to be dark brown. That shit came out green. That shit was embarrassing. And I haven't tried to rinse my hair, but when you want to get out here at Mac, especially when you have this adoring public, at least my hair's got some color. The light in this basement makes my hair shine. Looks like my hair is like white. And my hair is salt and pepper. It's black, brown, and gray. And white. Not just white, but it looks, you know what I'm talking about. It's shiny. And people think I'm about 80 years old. I wish I was 80 with Social Security. At least I could get me some cat food. And eventually, we need to do something before my mother lets this damn cat in. I noticed your cat shut the fuck up. What you give him?
He takes them CBD nips.
Okay, you need to give that cat needs some. That cat needs some pet Demerol or some Xanax to chill out and go somewhere, kill a mouse or something. So let me do a bathroom break. I promise we won't interrupt. And brother, do you have your questions for international news?
It's gonna be kind of crazy because I'm doing this right now on this tablet, Dr. Short.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I'm having an internet connection, which is
well, see, it kept erasing my programs. I kept trying to alert people, and it kept erasing over. And I'm thinking, how does that happen? What is going on? Look, be prepared if you guys do social media to have all kinds of problems. They're messing up stuff. They really don't like these conversations. And it's amazing, little teeny tiny broke ass me. What are you afraid of?
Yeah, it's funny because I'm having a problem with my computer, but this tablet that I'm on is working well. My
Okay.
computer, my whole system just shut down while you were talking. That's where I went.
Well, I mean,
So
it's so
you got
well. Don't do that again because I was trying to do a bathroom break. You making me hold it. I'm old. I may have like prostate problems. I'm like, God, I gotta piss. When is he gonna come back? His big knot
hold
head,
on one second, you
knotted
guys.
head ass went off when I told him I needed a bathroom break. That's when he went. I said, that's inconsiderate. Damn.
Hold on, hold on.
That's just a typical Northern Negro. Hmm.
Yeah,
You good?
hold on one second, Doctor
Yeah,
Short.
I have to keep him. My ureta's not gonna hold on. And damn, it's not Salmon Dave and shit.
We'll be right back in the chat, you guys. We'll be back shortly.
Okay, I'll be right back. Yeah, I will. Okay. All right, y'all. Woo. And for the smart ass that asked me, um, hmm, why I took so long, uh, I wash my hands after I touch my dick when I piss. If you don't, that's because you're nasty. So don't question me how long it took me to get back on here. You see, my hands are wet. It's because I wash my hands after I touch my dick. If you don't wash your hands after you touch yours, you're nasty and you probably work in the food industry. So, please don't even try to rush me. I don't give a damn who you are. Okay. I just know you're a nasty ass person. And so I take my damn time and I wash my hands, especially when I wipe my ass, because you don't know, you get some of that shit on your thumb and shit. You don't even notice it. And that's how people have doo-doo on their cell phones. Did you know they have fecal matter? Don't touch people's cell phones. They have their doo-doo and stuff on there because they sneezed. They don't wash their hands. That's how your ass gets sick. Being around nasty ass people. So damn it, yes, I use lye soap to kill everything on my damn hands. Okay. So I most certainly did. I took my damn time and I will do it again. So if I have to piss, I'm gonna wash my hands. I'm not gonna run back in here. So you see my hands are wet because I washed them. There's some nasty people, and that's a lot of folks. It wasn't COVID, it's because y'all been filthy fuckers for all these years. And it shit catches up with you. You need to wash your hands and use wipes on your ass because toilet paper just moves the shit around. I know from experience. Ever since I've discovered wipes, it's like meeting Jesus all over again. You feel clean inside. What's a song by Hezekiah Walker? Wipes will make you clean inside. Wipes will make you clean inside. They did. You don't itch. You don't have poop stains in your drawers when you use wipes. I mean, everybody should have that. You should have wipes along with toilet paper because toilet paper does not do the job, just like the Democrats and the Republicans don't do the job. They're there. Wipes is what black nationalism and black power is, and MFM. Okay. Now, Brother Q, you need to like get this moving because my people on Angry Black Books are anticipating that we're going to start in about an hour and we're going to run for at least 2 or 3 because I got to talk about Shirley Chisler. And just to keep it interesting, I got to talk about some niggas with some guns. Guns. Yes, you need a gun. And in fact, I have a machete I'm not going to show you unless you try to break in my house. Shoot. I'll be like Oscar Mayer on your ass. I'm just saying. And I used to have spears, African spears. I've always wanted to like have someone try to break in my house and like do a shaka zulu and have the spear go through their ass and they're like holding it, like just trying to pull that shit out. If you can't get a gun, if you're one of those Negroes that went to jail and you can't get a gun, get a crossbow. Get a compound bow. Get something that can hit someone at a distance so they can't get up on you. Okay, and intruding your house is not like pussy. You don't want it close to you. You want it laid out flat like a pussy, but not moving. Everybody needs a Bowie knife. In fact, okay, get a Gensu knife. Get some Japanese shit that won't break if you try to cut a grapefruit with it. Have it under your pillow like you're waiting for the tooth fairy that's a pedophile. But everybody's house has to have some shit in there to check these illegals and rogue Negroes and white supremacist races because the times are evil. And don't just have it, know how to use it. Like a lot of us are with guns, like a lot of studs are with sex toys. They buy them, but they don't know how to use it. That's why they end up being bisexual because they buy a sex toy kit to prove that they don't need a man. But you know, the ladies don't like to read instructions. So they end up getting lazy with the sex toys and end up messing with dudes because it's easier to deal with the dude than to read the instructions for the sex toy. We need to move beyond being push and play niggas to reading the instructions. Reading the fine print like what we did not do with the subprime loans. Now, a whole lot of niggas pushing bass carts and shit. You think they work for Walmart. They're homeless. Their asses didn't read. That's why I try to get people back to the joy of reading. It used to be reading was the thing. Do you know how illiterate black folk are today? Do you know that in DC, roughly 40% of black men can't read? It's a damn shame. They can't read. Their kids can't read. They all fucked up in school. And I was a social science teacher. We had all these discipline problems in school. You know why? Because the dumb fuck, in particular, young black boys, their asses couldn't read, and it was embarrassing. So, you know, you ask people to participate. Oh, well, please include the students. Make them a part of the class, right? Ask a nigga to read, and he wants to fight you. Instead of saying, I can't read. I'm 18. I'm dumb as shit. I got 2 kids, but I can't read. Motherfucker, how dare you ask me? And your ass can't read. Illiteracy is a big problem, black men. Stop hating on black women going to college, getting debt. Your ass didn't even get out of high school. Now, let's deal with, let's talk. I'm ready. You got some sound?
Yeah, I got sound, but it's choppy, Dr. Short.
Mm-hmm.
What? I actually rebooted my computer, but it's taking a long time. So something's going on. I had to clear my storage out.
Oh, okay. It's like they want you to cancel tonight. Uh-oh. It just did it. Okay, y'all. We're being harassed.
Yeah, give me like 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me just ask. There's something that you guys should have noticed, and I'm gonna just do this for world news. There's a guy who's Dr. Goboya, Goya Boom, and the president of Guinea. They broke out the last uh, dictatorial head of Guinea, who helped rape and kill 106 people in the national stadium in Conakry. Heavily armed men broke his ass out, probably because the French wanted to take his ass out, and they recaptured their former head of state, and he's back in lockup again. Let me just give y'all some info so you'll understand this whole Gaza shit that they're not talking about, or that matter, the Golan Heights. Y'all remember the little bald-headed Dick Cheney? He has a really good first name. It matches his personality. Dick Cheney, the vice president under W. Bush, you know, the one that used to be high and he became president. You can be a druggie and be president when you're white. Now, look, first and foremost, a whole lot of things are happening in the world news at one time. One, this Ukraine shit is about over. The Ukraine game is over. I don't know if you saw, but Zelensky, the man who played piano with his penis, did semi porn, who's a comedian that's now head of state. He and Bibi Netanyahu are the only two Jews in the world that are heads of state. Zelensky's a Jew and Netanyahu's a Jew. And I'm not picking on anybody. I'm just telling you what is true. And out of that, Zelensky was asking to come to Israel. And Netanyahu said, nope, ain't happening. It's not the right time. Because the Israelis don't want to share resources with the minority of Jews that are running Ukraine. Plus, the Ukrainian Jews are in alliance with the Nazis that used to kill Jews in Ukraine. Can you imagine a person that's affiliated with Nazis in Ukraine to come to Israel as the Israelis are killing the Palestinians? How people might make that? I mean, it's not that hard to do the inference. So as a result, they're saying, please don't come at this time. You need to know that you're being lied to. The Ukrainians are losing. The Ukrainians are getting their asses handed to them by the Russians, and the Russians get stronger. In fact, the Russian economy is doing so well, they can pay mercenaries as the Ukrainians have lost so many men. They're not really up to being able to continue to fight the Russians, who can now hire people from various places in Central Asia where people will fight the Ukrainians for pay. Afghanis who have, an axe to grind. They've got all kinds of people that the Russians can hire to fight because they got the money. Ukraine is collapsing. Biden's main foreign policy initiative in Europe is collapsing. And his failure to check Bibi Netanyahu is collapsing. American foreign policy is crashing as we're all watching it. And it's two rogue Jewish men tanking America's international prestige. And they don't care. And the more Biden gives, the dumber it gets. And Biden can't, with this angry Congress, can't continue to take our money and give it to Zelensky, who's crooked, and these weapons that have been given to the Ukrainians are going, even ending up in the hands of Hamas and Hezbollah and African revolutionaries and others. This is where your tax money is going. And terrorists. And weapons from Afghanistan that Biden let these people get. back in September of 2021. Remember that? All of this stuff. If it wasn't September, it was August 2021. One of the 2 months. Y'all know what the hell I'm talking about. I think it's August. Forgive me. August 2021. So as a result of this, Ukraine is no longer going to be a priority. It's going to continue to fail. And y'all need to understand something. Um, European people, let me just say, white people talk a lot of trash about how superior they are relative to other people in the human race, instead of how interdependent we are, right? I'm so superior. I'm so blind and blue eyed. I don't need anyone. We made everything. You other people just subhumans, waste that should die off. But your resources come from Africa. Uh, Let me know how the 30-year-old white work out. Okay, I hope so. Um, it it works if they want it to. It's worked before. No, but definitely, we are not trying to do drama. Brother, sisters, Ukraine is crashing. America's in trouble, and these European countries that have gotten in because Europe has been colonized by the United States since the Second World War ended under NATO and the what's this damn thing called, the Marshall Plan. And since the fall of the Soviet Union and the expansion of NATO, all of Europe is effectively an American colony against Russia, with the exception of a few countries that are saying no, like Hungary and some of the Slavic countries that know that Slavs are basically the niggers of Europe. Real talk. They know that they don't mind all the Ukrainians dying because they're Slavs. White folks have hierarchies, not just on color, but certain people are European, but they're not white enough. Have you ever noticed sometimes there are people who just can't work with Italians and Greeks and Spanish? Even says, damn, they're white. I thought everything's been white. Well, it's not white enough. Portuguese isn't white enough. Turkish ain't white enough. Russian ain't white enough, says people like Hitler. They're white, but sort of like black people have colorism, white people have colorism too. So all of this arrogance about how powerful and important and how great Europe is, but at the end of the day, the Europeans are dependent on resources from other countries because Europe is resource poor. So they're getting their stuff. They were getting their oil and gas from Russia, but you know what? Asshole Biden told them that they can't get gas and oil from Russia. And what do we know about Europe? It gets cold. It's not close to the equator. That's why I have all that light skin. So, and Biden and them destroyed the pipeline that Russia had to take gas into Europe. So, without the gas from Russia that was affordable, the Europeans need alternative sources of energy. Well, they thought they had a solution. There's a little crooked, lying, my God, this dude looks like a worm with clothes on. He's the head of state in Nigeria. His name is Tinubu. Tinubu made a deal with what's this dude's name? Macron, the no good French head of state. And they were going to get a gas pipeline so they could get gas from Nigeria. Nigeria has gas out the ass. If you've ever been to southeast Nigeria, you just see the stuff lit all night of gas coming out of the ground. I've seen it being in southeast Nigeria, in Calabar, in Port Harcourt, in Enugu, in what are the other places? Oyo, Eket. There's so many other places in southeastern Nigeria that are oil rich, right? Where the Ogonis are, Cross River State, all these other kinds of places that they have. The Nigerian gas and oil was supposed to go through a pipeline from Nigeria through guess which country, which is immediately to the north of Nigeria? Niger. But the coup in Niger, and this guy that's there who got rid of the guy who's Bazoum, it should be Bozo, the no good. This guy's from one of the little minority groups in Niger that nobody likes called the Tubu. And the Tubus are sort of like coons. They're Arab sometime, African sometime. So, they're playing this little color paper, African paper bag shit, a Sahelian African paper bag game. You'll find that there's certain Africans that identify as Arab-like, and they don't like the Bantu African type. So that, I'm a Sahelian or I'm a Saharan, and you're a grassland nigger or you're a tropical forest Negro, and I don't dig you. We have this shit too, black folks. Folks don't like each other from which project you're from or which part of the state you're from. Are you from down south or up north? Are you from a big city or a small town? Are you from the suburbs? Do you like white pussy? Don't like white pussy? Are you Muslim? You're Christian? We have reasons to dislike each other too. You're a Hova. You're a Yahweh. There's something stupid. We're not going to get along. But anyway, we still are more united than they are. Now, this Tubu dude, they kicked his ass out. They had worked out some deal because the French were getting from Niger uranium at about 37 cents a pound. Are you understanding me? You can't get bananas for 37 cents a pound. And the French were getting uranium, a high value mineral or resource, for 37 cents a pound. You're lucky if you can get grapes or cherries at 37 cents a pound in the last 15 years. Somebody talk to me. So how is a valuable material like uranium selling to the French for 37 cents a pound? And this new dude that's come in said, oh no, white people, French white people with all that bread stuck up on your arm. That yeast must be in your armpits and blocking your thought. If uranium is selling for like $220 a kilo, why are you getting 85 cents a kilo? I mean, that's beyond, that's just more than 100% ripoff. So now they've raised the price to somewhere between $212 to $220 or more, or it's more than that, for a kilo of uranium, which means the French are facing astronomical energy expenses because 1/3 of their economy is driven by uranium that they rip off from Niger. So this uranium shit gets cut. The pipeline that they thought with this crooked bozo nigga, and then this Tinubu drug dealing, no good Nigerian Yoruba Muslim, and Muslims do sell dope, and a lot of Muslims are corrupt as hell. And Malcolm X was a goddamn liar to say that just converting to Islam is going to make niggas perfect. Because if Islam made niggas good, explain that Muslims in Africa. The more fucked up and dysfunctional countries in Africa, the more likely it is Muslim. Just saying. Who's drowning in the Mediterranean primarily? People from Muslim African countries. Why that is, I mean, we can get into that conversation another time. But if Islam just made everybody black, work together, have dignity and self-respect and shit, Africa couldn't be like it is. Not trying to make Christians look perfect, because we can talk about this sorry tambourine rattling asses too. But I'm just going to deal with this. So this situation in Niger, these people went up on their uranium and they said hell to the no. They did this to Macron. They wouldn't let his gas pipeline go through Niger. And then the Algerians, the country to the immediate north of Algeria, the country to the immediate north of Niger, also doesn't want the pipeline, and also told the French, we remember that when the French initially went into Algeria in the 1830s, the French killed as many as 2 million Algerians. 2 million. That's like killing everybody in Gaza and leaving some change. White folk have really messed over some people, y'all, and history can come back to your ass. The Algerians remember that, and the Algerians also know that between 1954 and 1962, the French killed at least 1.5 million Algerians. Like 1 in every 8 Algerians were killed by the French. It's a lot of killing. 1.5 million people, my friends, it's like killing everybody in DC and Baltimore. Just poof. So the Algerians didn't want to help the French. They weren't going to be a country that was going to be used to screw over another African country by these goddamn blood-sucking French. The country that was going to fuck over the African countries and help the French, the country that is like a super anti-black country in North Africa, is Morocco. And there must be a God somewhere. Didn't they have that earthquake that just completely fucked their shit up? You haven't heard from Morocco's ass since. Morocco had agreed to facilitate the French going in and attacking their former African colonies that don't want to stop getting raped. And the Most High God gave their ass an earthquake to just shut the whole country down. They've been real cool since the earthquake. I don't want anyone to have earthquake. I don't want Gaza bomb, but you know. So I'm saying this to say something to you, that the French, and it's now wintertime and it's cold as shit in Europe, people are going hungry, people are going cold, the prices of utilities and it's going to the ceiling. The American sanctions that they put on Russia have cost the European economies anywhere from $1 to $2 trillion. That's devastating to their economies, my friend. A lot of people are hurting. And on top of that, Biden and them, and even Obama before, were pushing these European countries to let all of these illegals from Muslim and African countries to come in. So now you got millions of people, grifters and shit, groomers, folk raping people everywhere because they haven't seen anybody walk around half naked before. You go to a Muslim country, you can't have your titty hanging out, showing your tattoo and shit, eat that Joel. So I got this tattoo from my boyfriend on this titty, and I broke up with him. I got another. You can't do that shit. As I said, it's just the black woman here spoiled. You can walk around with your behind exposed and nobody can say or touch it. That shit doesn't happen in the Middle East. They'll run the train on your ass to kill you or rape and kill you. You can't be a hoe or, well, actually there, practically everybody's a hoe. If you're not covered up and married, you're presumed to be a hoe. And they're bringing those kinds of people, that mindset here. When you start seeing people disappear and shit, who told your asses that when people think that a person's a hoe, they just grab it? So, how do the French, who can't get gas from the Russians, and the Saudis and these other people are pushing the price of gas to the ceiling to take advantage and get paid off of the war and shit? I do it too. There's one place where they can get gas and oil cheaply. You know who has gas and oil, people? The Palestinians of Gaza. Gaza sits on top of a sea of oil and gas, and the trillions of cubic feet and billions of barrels of oil and shit sitting there. Nobody getting it because the Israelis don't want a Palestinian state to have a good economy and be viable. Because imagine if you've been fucking over people, killing them, pushing them around, killing their goats and shit, cutting their trees down, blowing up their houses, and all of a sudden you got rich. Think about all the people who fucked over you, and you hit Powerball tomorrow. What could you do to their asses for what they've done to you? And then you have a better idea why whites are saying no to reparations to you. What if you could get my family are Indians, half. They owned a lot of land in Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Charles County, St. Mary's County, Anne Arundel County, Howard County. I'm just telling you, lots of it. Do you realize if I suddenly had money and we could go after the people who've stolen thousands of acres from our families all over the country? And just one situation, my cousins who are related to Emmett Till, the battles down in Mississippi, had somewhere between 80 to 120 acres of land worth over $80 million stolen in the 1950s. Do you realize if they had the money to fight and they could get it back, that person or that family that's gotten rich off of stealing from my family loses, which means that's why they lit these illegals and give everybody opportunities but us, because they know, for example, it's a big ass lie that everybody came here from Africa on a slave ship. There are treaties that people have signed with some of us who are indigenous, are mixed, I'm both and. Don't hate Africa. Look, I love African stuff. I love Africans. But as I said to this Pan-Africanist nigga, I look at my mother every day. My mother's an Indian. My grandfather's an Indian. My aunt said they're Indians. My grandma's an Indian. Why do I have to lie to make some insecure, self-hating Negroes who want us all to be in some Marcus Garvey box feel good when it's a damn lie? I thought black people were for the truth. I've learned the reason that we're slaves is because we like lies. I always tell people the story. I remember going to my grandfather saying, Granddaddy, tell me about the people from Africa and the family. Tell me about the slaves. What? My grandfather says, I don't know anything about any slaves, son. What do you mean you don't know anything? Come on, man. We're black. This is, yes, son, we're black. Now we're black. What do you mean? Well, we're black now. It says, well, what's your mother? My mother's an Indian. What was her mother's an Indian too. I'm black. Your grandmother's black. So I guess we're black. But my mother's an Indian. My great grandma's an Indian. Okay. I'm just saying this to you. No, understand something. So the Palestinians, who are like the Indians in America, have all this oil and gas, and they're occupied, and they're in a concentration camp situation. And the Israelis know about the oil and gas that they have. And they know if those Palestinians were able, in particular, who runs Gaza? Hamas. If you saw what Hamas did on October 7th, with selling loose cigarettes and other shit, what would they do if they had some oil and gas money? They'd probably have a little nuke. They would do some crazy shit. I look, I'm not praising Hamas. They showed me that this is damn. God knows that they be blowing up buses and shit. What would they do if they had some real money to get some real weapons? Not the little firecracker shit they be firing. Don't you think the Israelis think about that? If the Palestinians really had real money, some real motherfucking fight against Israeli colonization and white settler money, what might they do? Okay, the black market for guns and bombs, it's a buyer's market, people. Do you realize with the little bit of shit that they could do with the little chump change they got now, what if they had the money that they would get from the oil and gas, from billions of cubic feet of natural gas and billions of barrels of oil? Do you think the Israelis going to wait around for the people in Gaza to get a contract and have that shit dug up and get rich? When they're broke ass white Jews from all over the world coming back, including sex predators that don't want to get prosecuted in America and Latin America. They plan to depopulate Gaza so they can get the oil and gas. And you need to know, I believe the country Qatar and I believe some people from Greek, they met on a Greek island, and they've already decided that they're going to get the oil and gas and steal the Palestinian shit. And the French want that. That's the French people's plan C. Plan A was Russia. America blew up the Nord Stream thing, so they got cut out of that shit. Okay, can't get mad at that, for the, your American allies. They've been propping the French people's asses up since World War II. Okay, then the niggas go rogue in Africa. All of a sudden, these self-hating Africans are kind of sold our asses and shit. Now all of a sudden they black and proud and they doing a economic bush bitch thing on the French where they want half and shit. And white folk never expected Africans to want a fair price for anything. After all, they got us for a damn song and shit. Now, after 500 years, Africans are tired of playing a cool version of Let's Make a Deal. They want some real motherfucking money when the French are on their fucking knees and shit. So they cut their fucking pipeline. So where the French gonna get secure energy? Who can make certain that they can take this shit out of the ground and deliver it through Marseille or however they're gonna get it? That's not too far from France because the transportation costs of oil and gas that come from America is high. On top of that, this fuck up predator, no good Joe Biden has destroyed the American energy sector because they want you to go broke buying electrical cars that'll blow up and set your houses on fire. And they're $17 a gallon. Basically, that's equivalent to recharge the shit so he can give money to the Chinese who bribed his CCP loving ass. Where are the French going to get this damn oil? They've got the Israelis because the French have a Jewish organization called CRIF. CRIF. I think it stands for the Jewish citizens in France, but it's CRIF. CRIF is the name. CRIF is the French version of APAC, which is the American Israel Political Action Committee. The British have their high-powered Jewish group too, and those folks have some Epstein who have all kinds of videos of people screwing kids, and they got something probably on Lindsey Graham. That's why his ass is for Israel no matter what. If Israel wanted to drop a bomb on the White House, you could get Lindsey Graham's ass on CNN to approve it. I don't know what they have a video of him doing, but I think it's pretty spicy, right? There's a reason that everybody just says yes to Israel. I mean, they talk about hard-headed rednecks that say no to everything. They say no to being straight. Now, when it comes to Israel, it's yes, 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 yes. I'm not saying to say no to Israel, but damn, there's nothing because the whole Epstein thing shows that the Israelis run the American Congress through blackmail. I live in D.C. The way that you run everything is that you can say, you know what? You're fucking the page from the page school. You better support my bill, you bitch. I'm going to have someone from the Washington Post expose you. Adam Clayton Powell, first black congressman from New York, the congressman from Harlem, the one who they stripped of seniority and they illegally expelled from Congress and he got put back in by the Supreme Court. You wonder how he got all that legislation for Head Start and the war on poverty shit that this black man moved because he knew who the white folk were fucking in Congress. Tell someone, you're fucking your chief of staff. You guys are gay. I'm going to get the Post to do a story on you. Thanks for your vote. I'm just telling you how DC works. I have a problem here. I'm just telling you, what? You're a stud. In fact, you need to take the pubic hair off your tongue when you're talking to people. Do you notice I can see that? Then all of a sudden, don't. People, y'all think I'm joking. I had a friend that couldn't get a promotion. I had to call the city council person up there. I had to speak to someone. Dude, don't you know? You think I don't know that you're not fucking your boss? I have his personal number. send this ass a message. My friend got his promotion. Okay, that's how DC works. You always have to know people's business. Once you tell someone, you know, you've been fucking the Federal Express person. I know because their truck is blocking the street for 2 hours once a week. You better stop doing this stuff. I'm gonna tell everybody. That's how DC is. It's this place is corrupt as shit. I said I could look at someone if they get advanced real fast. Ooh, I'm trying to figure out who they screwed to get that. It's not different from Hollywood. You know, have the casting couch for people to get starring roles and shit. I hope nobody did anything to Will Smith's son for that Karate Kid shit. Because it's a really good movie. He's been strange ever since that movie was made. Come on, Q. Look up and goodness will. It was a great movie. I thought Jalen Smith was great, but he's been strange ever since he did the Karate Kid. Didn't you expect him to do another film that was such a big hit? And then all of a sudden just like Hollywood, DC's corrupt. DC's nasty. And I'm saying to you that blackmail is how you get stuff done in DC. Really. And so these Israelis have dirt on everybody. And that's how and the Turks have stuff on people. In fact, let me share something with y'all asses to show you how blackmail works. You know that bald-headed punk ass nigga up in New York, Eric Adams. See how they raided one of his campaign people's house Thursday. I told you something was wrong with that nigga. Hey, Q, look at me, man. We were talking about his sorry ass. What's it called? Eric's Arc or Adam's Arc, whatever the hell the show is. He's sorry as shit. I told you he wasn't shit. He's working with the Turks who spy on people. There was a woman, her name was Edmonds. She was a Sibel Edmonds. She was a Turkish woman who got basically run out of the government for whistleblowing that the Turks were spying because everybody's business. Trust me, in DC, it's like a political Hollywood, and they get people to do nasty stuff and then they own you. I'm just trying to tell you this. Okay, it's the same way that they got that little sorry ass one. Who's the one that had Bill Clinton's nut on her dress? Come on, you know her name. What's this stupid ass girl's name? Monica Lewinsky. Don't you guys know that Monica Lewinsky, who's Jewish, got situated into Bill Clinton's situation by Rahm Emanuel and these other people who work with Jewish intelligence, and they were able to manage Bill Clinton through this woman who he was sticking a cigar up her ass, wishing it was his penis. And when Bill Clinton didn't do what they wanted, they whipped this stuff out. You put a cigar in the Jewish girl's pussy, we're going to tell everybody. Then Bill Clinton started doing shit, bombing people and shit to try to play it off. And he still got busted. That's how DC works. It's that damn nasty. And the Boulet's just as nasty. You see people getting stuff, you know that they screwed somebody. Somebody got that. There's no way. No way that all this stuff is happening if someone didn't use them. There's a song they used to sing in church, I'm going to live so God can use me. Here, I'm going to live so fraud can use me anytime, anywhere. Believe that. So I'm now saying to you that Biden and them know about this gas shit in Gaza and this oil shit in Gaza. And the French, they need some goddamn oil and gas. Israel needs some goddamn oil and gas. They want to get paid. The Israeli economy is in trouble because these bastards are insatiable. And Israel has a permanent underclass of 500,000 to 1 million people who are miserable in Israel. That country's on the brink of a civil war. We're talking about some Jew on Jew violence, man. People gonna have kosher murders and shit. Can't stab you on Sabbath, but I'll stab you tomorrow. Okay, shalom, right? Stab you the next day, right? God won't mind me killing you on the so it's not a holy day. I mean, it's really deep like that. Now, what I want to say to you is if the oil and gas is that important to Europe and that important to the Israelis and the other people who have information of folks, then they don't have a problem doing everything they can to exterminate, eliminate, and drive out the Palestinians. And the way that money is made these days, like corporations like Bechtel, they make their money through reconstructing areas after they've been destroyed. They get all the grants and all the money. Who's been giving the bags of money to Hamas with Israel having everything cut off? The Qataris. The Qataris are racist Wahhabis. The Qataris helped kill the black people in Libya and get rid of Gaddafi. And the Qataris probably want to make Gaza into a new Dubai. I'm just saying. And so the French and all these other people have conflict of interest behind Gaza, which means they don't mind letting 2.3 million people be destroyed. And before we get upset about that, remember there are 23 million displaced people in Congo. As many as 8 million people have been killed in Congo for a war that goes back to about 1995 or 96. It's almost 30 years of warfare. So Africans are dying every day all over the African continent. In fact, I want to remind you, due to biofuels and other things and manipulation of food prices, a minimum of 16 million children die every year. Disproportionate number of them are African children. So that means maybe 10 million African children die a year because of hunger. And that's structurally created by the United States, the United Nations, the World Health Organization, the IMF, World Bank, the Club of Rome, and everybody systematically decimating a minimum of 10 million black children every year. So you're talking about 2.3 million Palestinians. I agree, it's terrible. But if you think about it, in 10 years, that's 100 million dead African babies. That's a lot of dead people. That's more than World War I and II put together. In fact, it's more than World War I and World War II and all the proxy covert wars that followed World War II, and just dead African children. So before we get all caught up and upset, let us understand. And there's a very good book. It's called One Nation Under Blackmail. This is the reason I keep begging for contributions. I need to get both sets. Many of you don't know that Egypt, Saudi Arabia, in fact, some of these Islamic nations have gotten together with Western nations to make certain that African nations remain poor and dependent. So much for Islamic Brotherhood. And the only people that believe in Islamic Brotherhood are ignorant black Muslims. Black Christians don't think that white Christians give a damn about us. Black Muslims actually think the other people care. It's kind of funny. They really don't. Shit, I'll stay with Jesus and shit. My L'Oreal, Jesus is doing more for me than what you guys are getting from the stuff you're into. I said it just like that. I mean it. So France is desperate. So they don't have a problem letting the Palestinians die, as awful as it is. Again, what's happening to Palestinians is genocide. Genocides happen all the time. There's a genocide in Haiti. There's a genocide in Ethiopia going on. There's a genocide in Sudan going on. There's a genocide in Congo going on. There's a genocide all over. A genocide that happened in Afghanistan. There's a genocide in Iraq that America did. Genocides happen all the time. And the real thing is, I'm going to just say this to you so we can move on. The Islamic nations could solve the problem in Gaza overnight with an oil and gas embargo. They don't want to do it. They have a fantasy, sort of like black people who think that they can all move back to Africa and make one big black kingdom and everybody respect us. which is basically a mountain of shit with piss on it. Not that I'm against such a thing, but how long do you think this is going to take? How many of you have family reunions every year where you can get your own family here to like even? I'm not talking about just dance to some Marvin Gaye and some some funk records, but really figure out how the hell you guys are related to each other and create some real network for economic empowerment for your family the way that Asians and other people do. We don't do that here. Why would Africans with hundreds of languages and sub ethnic groups all of a sudden, after millions of years of human existence, say, let's all come together? And wait a minute, do you think the North African Arabs want to hook up with the Africans? No. Do you think that the Hausa really want to work with the Igbo? No. The Yoruba really want to work with the Igbo? That's Nigeria, the most populous country. No. The middle belt people want to work with the people in the forest belt? No. The northerners work with the southerners? No. The easterners with the westerners? No. So how are you going to get all of Africa to work together? Why put so much energy in getting 1.6 million to 2.2 billion people to work together when we haven't been able to figure out how to get 75 million black people to work together in the United States? Where we speak the same language, we've got phone access, internet access. We have no fucking reason why we can't work together other than we're betrayed and we don't really want it. Some of us are happy being slaves and we have no good traitor leadership worthy of death. I said that. And yet these Pan-Africanists and others all want us to believe in this fairy tale called Pan-Africanism. And by the way, Pan-Africanism has always been pushed by white supremacists who want the land that belongs to us Aboriginals, people like me who are Powhatan and Seminole and Pamunkey and Piscataway and Cherokee, to tell me my home is somewhere else. You mean some of my ancestors' homes are somewhere else? I agree with you. I like Africa. Love it. Love Africans. I got family here too. And so it says a bird in hand is better than two in the bush. Well, Pan-Africanism is 100 dead birds in the bush. And the bird in hand that we have in America, we want to let that shit go and hand it to some illegals. And we wonder why everybody's got something but us. As long as we're ingrates, as long as we don't like what we have, who we are, where we've been, what we've come from, we're collectively fucked as a people. Let me make this clear. If I had billions of dollars and I could find reliable people, I wouldn't have an issue in my heart at all in working with people that are African. If I had millions, if I could find reliable people, I have no issue working with people that are African. But in the interim, as I'm broke, in the words of Booker T. Washington, a great person, and I could care not a fuck who doesn't like it. I have some differences with Mr. Washington. He was anti-reparations. His ass was stupid on that. He was rich. A lot of Negroes that think they made it don't think that we broke ones don't need it. We need MFM. We've always needed it. But he said, cast on your buckets where you are. Do something when you can, where you can, as fast as you can, as much as you can. It's a solution. So bring it home. We need to keep our asses out of these conflicts. Stop fighting other people's fights. And stop jumping into stupid religions that you don't know anything about. And why would you go from being a dumb fuck Christian to being a dumber fuck Muslim without researching what Islam's all about? If you can't get along with the sisters with the big fat butterball Smithfield ham arms and shit, you know, the broads with the big ass arms that look like they have a football under on the back of their arm. If you can't get along with them and they have the chin hair and enough moles and shit to be a California raisin mutant, how the hell are you going to get along with these Pakistanis that like screwing their own cousins and shit that hate everybody when you become a Muslim? And I'm telling you, there are a whole bunch of no good black people that call themselves leaders, who everybody calls elders, and their asses can't stick to anything. First, you're a Christian, then you're in the Nation of Islam, then you become an Orthodox Muslim, then you get into African religions and spirituality, then you go into fucking voodoo. I'm like, damn, how can you lead me when you can't stay with nothing? How are you a leader when you mean you made 5 religious mistakes in your goddamn life that you kept picking the wrong faith to be in? If you can't figure out how to order your fucking spirituality or life, how are you going to be someone's elder or leader? You want to tell me about pyramids? Show me what you've done if you've had 50 or 60 years in the public and have had resources and resourceful people to accomplish something. What have you guys done, boomers? And what the boomers like doing is pointing you into Pan-Africanism, socialism, leftist stuff, feminism, everything that they never want to deal with home. You know why? Because they were abusive, neglectful parents. The greatest abuse of all is that they didn't convey identity. They didn't give a clear political, socio-economic path for how we would succeed. And as a result, we're failing because they failed, and they failed many times over. There are also people say, oh, yeah, we'll let all the people in. The more brown people in America, the better shit will be for us. And I have to go off on my mother, nigga. You haven't had to work with these Spanish-speaking people. No, you haven't. You got to work with black or white people. You don't know anything about this stuff, so you need to just take my just please. Birth order doesn't mean you know anything. Because you like 20 years older than me doesn't mean that you haven't noticed. I had to point out to you, whenever you see people in the stupid white vans and shit driving erratically, it's a Latino. They have something. They get a hard on driving white vehicles. Am I lying, brother? Yes? I don't hear you. I can't hear you at all. Then my mother had to say to me, you know what? When I see people driving crazy and they have a white vehicle, a white van or white car, they're Hispanic. I says, I told you. I says, I don't hate people. I'm just telling you what I see their asses do. When I hear about someone try to kill someone with a hammer, I know that's not a black person. They shot the person or beat them to death with their hands. A hammer? Damn, it's not Home Depot. This is hood. You can kill that person's ass shit. I mean, a hammer, that's a person that's got some issue, somebody from some rural area that's got a tapeworm on their brain. When black folks will hurt someone, they really try to do that shit with their hand. I'm gonna shoot you. Now you get a blunt object if it's some domestic shit. But out in the street, you're not gonna try to take someone on with a hammer because you get your ass beat. You take a gun out in the street. Now in the house, a chair or something, I get it. Butcher knife, but not out in the street. Come on, Brother Q. You think you go out in the street and try to take someone on with a hammer? No. I know it's not a black person that did that. I could tell nigga wouldn't do that. Nigga would go there with the gun, make certain that person's ass is face down, or at least face up, laid out on the pavement, bleeding out and shit. But not a hammer and shit, because someone could take this shit from you. Now, look, we're gonna stop here because they're giving your ass some technical problems. Am I lying? Yeah, they have messed up. Look, welcome to the life of Dr. Short. When we start trying to do stuff, all of a sudden technical things start going wrong. Time and time and time and time again. No matter what. At first, I couldn't get this stuff up on StreamYard. Then they took his sound out. But that's okay. I want everybody to first and foremost give an applause. I want everybody following me. I'm going to put up this channel. It's called LetsTalk2. It's on YouTube. I just posted it in the comments. He's on YouTube. We do things together when they're not stopping us. The better we've done, the more problems we get. Um, we are working together as I'm working with Chef C, who has a YouTube channel called On Their Necks. There is another YouTube channel called Lone Wolf. Lone Wolf Firearms. And we are the skeleton crew of a larger group of Black bloggers, podcasters, and others that plan to change the trajectory of Black civic engagement online. The minute we start talking about this shit, everybody start having problems. And this brother did a show with Juan on guns and got like almost 400 hits. And that they're really upset because we're working with an NRA registered weapons expert, and they don't like this. And I'm going to get Black farmers and other things, and the pharmaceutical people can get mad because I would just say to people, we can do better. So what I'm going to do is close out here, but remind all of you that are watching me from Let's Talk 2. We've been doing this for 3 hours. Need your support. Come on over to the Angry Black Men's Book Club on YouTube, or you can watch it. I have Randy Short, Randy Lancaster Short, Dr. Randy Short. I think I'm on Facebook. I think I haven't put it up on Instagram. And my Vimeo is Dr. Randy Short. You'll be able to see this if you come in, because I'm ready to start reading. In fact, I might do something different before I go into Shirley Chisler. We'll be talking about Beauty Isn't Skin Deep, talking about Shirley Chisholm, a sellout tether feminist who was promoting LGBTQ and eugenics and intersectionality and feminism, which is unacceptable. And I'm absolutely out to expose this shit. And our theme, for as long as I put until the end of this year, we're going to be talking about Black nationalism, Black heroes, Black villains. We'll be talking about Black self-defense, and also giving historical examples. So, and pointing out, because we don't get taught that they're traitors, that they're enemies, and that they're heroes, real ones. I want your support. I need Patreon people. I have 16. I'd love to have 60. My Patreon is Dr. Randy Short, Dr. Randy Short, Dr. Randy Short, DrRandyShort. That's my Patreon. My Cash App is Dr. Randy Short. $sign DrRandyShort. My Vimeo is Dr. Randy Short, DrRandyShort. It's easy. All you have to do is Google. We're www.AngryBlackMensBookClub online. www.AngryBlackMensBookClub.com is our website. Angry Black Men's Book Club on YouTube. And I've got some other things. I've got to work on getting this Rumble connected. I'm not savvy. Remember, I'm an Xer. So anyone that's tech savvy, I would love your advice for how to get this RMTP shit or whatever it is hooked up, so I can have this professional StreamYard reach as many different people. And you need to know, if you don't get the alerts, just look anyway, because YouTube doesn't allow me to send out notices. People really didn't like what I was doing, was talking to hundreds of thousands of people. And some of us aren't running after popularity. I talk about things as I see fit, how I feel about it. Feminists and others be damned. Simps, sellouts, traitors, I don't like you. And I don't want to like you. I don't want to be friends. I don't want popularity. I'm not after crowds. I'm after giving my point of view, which is worth something. So again, Patreon, Cash App, and of course, if you don't do those, I do Zelle and PayPal. My Zelle and my PayPal are wrandyshort@gmail.com, 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 and that's also my personal email. And I try to write people that ask serious and intelligent questions. I try to answer if I can. If I don't get back to you, write me. You know, I had someone tripping on me. You forgot about me. Damn, they write me under a pseudonym and shit. Don't do any stupid shit like that because I came back at that person. I think that was dumb. It would have been easy to say, hey, Mr. Short, I was talking to you. It's been a while, blah, versus talking about how I forgot someone and how I didn't do this and that. Haven't paid me anything. I told them, you know what? You want someone to respond to your ass immediately? Retain a lawyer. The first thing they're going to do is charge you money for their time. You want to get on my fucking time, burn up time to listen to your personal shit, free of charge, and tell me how fast I have to respond to you. You are not entitled to anything. Grow up. We need to cooperate and support each other. So it's 11:20. I'm going to push out here. Come on over to Angry Black Men's Book Club. We're going to have fun with Shirley. But I think I want to read a little bit from this book. Oh, my God. I want to thank Brother Juan Johnson for this book. He sent me the money, and yes, I bought a book. If y'all think I don't have any damn books, let me just tell you, I have mega books. In fact, this is another book on traders. This is a French trader. He's like the John Lewis of France, Marshall Pétain. We're going to be talking about traders from other countries so you can understand what this shit's about. So anyway, Brother Q, I'm so sorry that they messed up your channel. My apologies to everybody. It's not us. We're just trying to share with y'all. And look, they don't do this to people who have 100,000 followers. You have to wonder why. Some people can't talk to 20 people, and others are allowed to talk to hundreds of thousands of people. Is it because they're not really doing certain things? Just think about that. Support this channel. Become a subscriber to the Angry Black Man's Book Club. Oh, the host has muted my mic. You muted me. Support this channel, the Angry Black Men's Book Club, on YouTube. And all that. Just be in touch, be in touch, be in touch, be in touch. Let me let you go. Bye-bye, bro. Okay. I want to tell everybody, someone was talking about Bechtel, and I want to remind y'all, for the Golan Heights in northern Israel, it's oil rich. Dick Cheney is a co-owner of the oil under the ground. It's crooked. It's crooked. That's why Israel's being allowed to own land that doesn't belong to them. This is part of why the people are mad. Don't blame me. I didn't do nothing. All I'm doing is telling y'all the truth. So let me see. Now, let me go in here and do some fake book. I love fake book. God, fake book. Hold on, let me clear this out. I told you about 11:30. We're going to get real up in here because this is some bullshit that they pulled tonight. I didn't do anything. All I did was show up like I said I would. Do I have fake book on here? You know what? I'll put this up on InstaSham. I don't care. Come on, InstaSham. I don't want that. Okay, y'all. I'm just trying. What's going on in here? I want to go home. Okay, I'm trying to get into Instagram. Now, I want to go to Plus Real Live. Okay. Here we go. Angry Black Men's Book Club. I am here under the Salt Ministry LLC for the time being. Hey y'all, we're here. I want to say hi to all 14 people that are on StreamYard and to anybody that wants to join me. Um, you're free to join me. I'm going live on Instagram. I'm live everywhere. Are you guys ready? And Vimeo, here I go. Welcome. Again, MFM to everybody. We want that motherfucking money and we need it like since 1619. We're way overdue. Um, I want to, first of all, give a shout out to the Most High for literally creating the beginning of the destruction of the political career of that sorry ass, Mr. Yuck looking Eric Adams, that bitch ass mayor in New York who's betrayed the people, made the same thing, made corruption for that no good, sorry ass, Barbara Jordan looking tranny dude in a fat suit. What's his name? Johnson, the no good mayor of Chicago who got money from the Chicago Teachers Union. I hope his crooked ass is brought down. That was my prayer today. And I'll pray out loud before we get into this. May the God that I serve in heaven destroy the political career of Mr. Johnson, who's betrayed the blacks on the south and west side of Chicago. May the eyes of my people open up that just because folks aren't Anglos doesn't mean they're our friends. In fact, we don't need any friends but each other and the Most High God. We don't even need coons to be our friends. Lord God, we need our MFM. We need unity. We need land. We need guns to protect it with. We need our own health care. And we need the family. We need real black women and real black men. We don't need pork chop feminists. We don't need rainbow bullshit. We don't need abortion. We don't need liberals. We don't need leftists. We don't need tethers. We only need you and each other. May we walk together, children. Don't get worried. And may we get MFM in this life and the life to come. Let the people say amen. Welcome, everyone, to the Angry Black Men's Book Club. I am your fearless black host who couldn't give two damns about sellout Negroes who all belong on death row, especially if they're Democratic leaders in large cities. You're the biggest sellouts of all times. And if you know anything about ethnic politics, people who betray their own people have short shelf lives. Thank God that you're with a nonviolent people who are increasingly secular, meaning they may become increasingly violent against people who betray them. You're going to miss Bible believing Negroes like me who pray for our enemies because there's a generation coming along that will not be nonviolent with folks once they find out that they've been set up for Gaza style erasure on the land in which they were born, in their land of birth. My friends, it's going to be rough out here. Don't blame me. In fact, I'm never going to preach hatred against any group. I don't hate anybody. I don't want to hate anybody. But I hate injustice. I hate hunger. I hate genocide. I hate being fucked over. I hate being betrayed. All right. I want to introduce you guys to a book that you're not going to hear typically. I want to take the time to read the first chapter in this book before going to Shirley Chisholm, for whom I've devoted many hours to her unattractive looking sellout ass. So, the book that I want to read the first chapter of is If We Will Shoot Back. We Will Shoot Back by Akanyele Omowale Umoja, one of these Pan Africanist niggas. Sometimes they're good for something. The chapter is Terror and Resistance. So this is sort of like a movie preview. This is the book that Brother Juan and I will be talking about. And there are other books. And by the way, there are a couple books on black folks and guns. I need to buy them to integrate that into the curriculum. So, anybody that wants to donate, trust me, if I get the book and they don't take my ass off air, I believe in sharing. This chapter is called Terror and Resistance. Oh my God, come on, man. Y'all ready? Y'all ready for some MFM? Y'all ready for some black defensive violence? Y'all ready for folks to protect their own lives instead of saying, I believe in white Jesus and come kill me and I'll go to heaven? Hell, send some people to hell while you go to heaven if you must go. All right. Terror and resistance. Let me get my thermos here so I can wet my whistle. This is just water. I don't like alcohol, although I worked as a bartender. Ah, good. Let's hit it. Terror and resistance. Foundations of civil rights insurgency. On Christmas Day in 1875, State Senator Charles Caldwell, a freedman, was invited by Buck Cabell, a white associate, to a store for a friendly drink. That already sounds stupid, y'all. Because of his political activity and actions in defense of his people's liberty, Caldwell's life had been threatened by local white citizens. Due to these threats, Caldwell's wife, Mary, cautioned him against leaving home and traveling to town. Not wanting to offend someone. Uh-oh, respectable Negro. Not wanting to offend someone he had known and respected for years, Caldwell disregarded the concern of his wife and accepted the invitation of Cabell, one of the few white men that he trusted. You know how this is going to end already. Anyway. In fact, Cabell insisted that they have a drink together and escorted the black politician to Chilton's store in Clinton. They went to the store cellar to enjoy their drink. The two men toasted each other by tapping their glasses. With the clink of the glasses, a shot was fired from the window of the store, and Caldwell fell to the floor. Suddenly, armed white men surrounded Caldwell. He recognized them, community leaders, judges, politicians, men of substance. Not wanting to die like a dog closed up, the wounded man asked to be taken from the cellar to the street. And this last act of courage, the proud politician declared, remember when you kill me, you kill a gentleman and a brave man. Never say you killed a coward. I want you to remember it when I'm gone. Christmas in Clinton wasn't a silent night. Dozens of shots riveted the body of Caldwell. In the beginning of the 19th century, Mississippi, a territory of the United States acquired in the Louisiana Purchase, consisted only of a few thousand white settlers and captive Africans, as well as the indigenous population, black Indians, some of us. In 1817, Mississippi was granted the status of a state in the United States Federal Union. Demand for land for white settlement and expansion of commercial farming meant the expulsion of the indigenous population and the increased demand for captive African labor. Particularly due to the expansion of King Cotton, Mississippi had increased in population. The region east of the Mississippi River was overwhelmingly populated with over 55% consisting of enslaved people of African descent. By 1860, the state had a population of 353,000 899 whites, and 437,404 blacks, with a very small free population of 773. The Mississippi economy was dependent on a system of racial slavery. The end of the Civil War and the corresponding policy of emancipation potentially undermined the white planter class, who relied on a servile and oppressed black labor force for their livelihood, privilege, and power. The assassination of Caldwell is symbolic of the reign of terror that defeated Reconstruction, democracy, black political participation, as well as human rights in Mississippi and the South in the mid 1870s. Violence was central to the establishment of white domination, not only to seize power for white supremacists, but also to instill fear and intimidation in the black population and their allies. In a state with a black majority, to secure white supremacy and to maintain black labor, particularly rural workers, as a servile labor force, it was necessary to institutionalize fear and intimidation. Men like Caldwell represented hope for black progress and resistance to white domination. Who was Charles Caldwell, and why was he a threat? Caldwell was an enslaved person, a blacksmith, living in Hinds County, Mississippi, who became a leader in his community during emancipation. After the end of the Civil War, Caldwell aligned himself with the Republican Party, and in 1868, one of 16 black Republican delegates to the state constitutional convention. The constitutional convention was placed the former Confederate state under martial law and would form a new governments that would prevent the Confederates from securing power. To neutralize the power of the former Confederates in the South, particularly the Southern elites, it was necessary to include black people in the franchise. In Mississippi, including black males in that body politic meant that the majority of the voting population would be people of African descent. And this political environment, Charles Caldwell emerged and was elected to the 1868 Mississippi Constitutional Convention. With 16 black delegates out of a total of 94, the convention was drafted the most democratic constitution in the history of Mississippi until the civil rights era of the 1960s and 70s. It made all persons residing in the state citizens, with the right to a trial by jury and other rights provided to U.S. citizens by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. The Mississippi Constitution of 1868 eliminated the property criteria for holding office, jury service, and suffrage. As with other Reconstruction assemblies during the period, the Mississippi Constitution of 1868 provided for public education, the elimination of segregation and public accommodation in institutions, and universal adult male suffrage. On the other hand, whites who were linked to the Confederate rebellion against the Union were disfranchised. This policy resulted in 20,000 whites, mostly elites, being denied the right to vote or hold office. Caldwell was an active participant in the 4-month process of drafting a Reconstruction Constitution for his home state. Subsequent to the convention, Caldwell was involved in a shooting incident in Jackson, the Mississippi state capital. In broad daylight, a white man, who was the son of a Mississippi judge, attempted to shoot Caldwell, but in self-defense, the black leader shot and killed his attacker. Caldwell was tried and acquitted, achieving the distinction of becoming the first and possibly only black person to win an acquittal for killing a white man in Mississippi. Following the convention, the successful defense of his life, and acquittal in Jackson, Caldwell became involved in the Hinds County government. In 1870, he was elected to the state senate. Caldwell and other black politicians participated in the state government. After the election of 1873, black men were elected to the offices of lieutenant governor, secretary of state, superintendent of education, and speaker of the House. While Caldwell and other black legislators did not possess the numbers to control either body of the state legislature, their interests were reflected in the policies developed by the state government. The Mississippi Reconstruction legislators instituted elements of the 1868 Mississippi Constitution, including universal male suffrage, elimination of chattel slavery, eradication of codes related to racial servitude and control, and the establishment of public education. Vagrancy laws were eliminated and taxes for mechanics and artisans lowered. The right of married women to control their own income, autonomous from their spouses, was implemented. Husbands also required to receive consent for their spouses for the sale of family domiciles. Let me stop 1 second here for all the asshole pork chop feminists. This means that when the black men got into the state assembly in Mississippi, they advocated for the rights of women. Black men did. Do black women today who are Democrats advocate for black men over 150 years later? Don't answer it. But when you hear all this talk about black men being sexist and black men holding black women back, the minute that these men were free, they began advocating for black women. White men weren't even advocating for white women. Black men led the way in women getting more rights. The favor hasn't been returned. Many of our women who are now in positions of power are traitors to black men, black women, and black children by getting into this woman feminist ideology. And so a whole bunch of women's rights and things, the minute the black men got there that remembered slavery, wanted to protect their mothers, sisters, wives, lovers. Wasn't something that white men did. The black lesbian feminists who are with white female supremacists who are married to the elites that are killing and exploiting black people omit black men's effort and advocacy on behalf of women from the history. Why? They're looking for a reason to not respect or work with black men. The exact opposite of what every other group of women do. Shame on black women for being like this. And black men who run and kiss and scrape and act like the world's going to run out of conjugal sex with women for standing on principle, you're the biggest chumps. You're not men at all. You're male. You may be a heterosexual male, but you're not a heterosexual man. If you're not able to have a reciprocal respect between you and your sisters. And for all you WASI sisters like Sister Temple in Chicago, you know we're not talking about the good black women. We're talking about the bad black women. There are no good black men. And for every no good black man, there's a no good pork chop feminist. They're in proportionate numbers. In response to the Democratic agenda of the Mississippi Reconstruction government, former Confederates, the white planter class, and their allies worked to undermine and ultimately defeat the Republican government. With the Democratic Party as their electoral arm and white supremacy as a mobilizing tool, they used extra legal violence as a major vehicle to achieve their interests. According to John Lynch, U.S. Congressman and first Black Mississippi State Speaker of the House, quote, nearly all the Democratic clubs in the state were converted into armed military companies. Funds with which to purchase arms were believed to have been contributed by the National Democratic Organization. They owe us reparations. The Democratic Party didn't just do that. In Illinois, the Democratic Party organized the mass murder of blacks in East St. Louis in 1917. They also did mass killing of blacks in Chicago in 1919. Stop worshiping political parties and worship God, or be a goddamn consistent atheist. Lynch also stated that paramilitary forces, primarily former Confederate military, were, quote, tried and experienced soldiers and fully armed and equipped for the work before them. We now have standing armies of military aged men in our communities all over the country. And we have a bunch of dumb fuck black Democrats pushing for gun buybacks to disarm the community. There are a lot of black men and women who served their time who should have the statutes changed so if you've served your time, you can have a firearm to protect your family. Why isn't this something that these no good nigger Democrats aren't doing, who are in state legislatures, municipal governments, and in the Congress of the United States? It is incumbent on us to begin to raise hell against anyone that would dare call themselves a black elected official who's not on point. Our job should be to destroy the career of anyone who will not serve our interest. A black face in a high place that does nothing for us is nothing but an enemy. Fully armed white armies, my friend. We have that now. The development and the use of white terrorist organizations to neutralize and defeat Republican and black politicians by any means necessary was the order of the day. For the bourbon white elite and their allies, the intimidation of the black laborers and farmers was necessary to prevent their political involvement and to maintain their subjugated location in the economy. The white elite could not maintain its interest and position without the subordination of the black majority. Determined black leaders like Caldwell served as obstacles to the white elite power in Mississippi and throughout the South. During the 1875 elections, white supremacist forces intensified their offensive to undermine and harass the Reconstruction government of Mississippi. Race riots occurred in Vicksburg, Water Valley, Louisville, Macon, Friars Point, Columbus, Rolling Fork, and Yazoo City. White supremacists initiated race riots to intimidate black voters and to disrupt Republican political campaigns. In Macon, for example, 12 blacks were killed by white vigilantes imported from Alabama. And Vicksburg, as recently emancipated blacks celebrated their new citizenship on the 4th of July at a 4th of July parade, white terrorists killed large numbers of the black population. In Yazoo City, white supremacists violence forced the Republican sheriff to leave town and took the lives of several blacks. Let me stop here and say to you that there is no clear number of how many black people were murdered following the Civil War between 1865 and 1880. I saw a number that a minimum of 25,000 blacks were murdered in just 2 years following the Civil War. 25,000. 25,000 black people dying in the Civil War is almost half of what we lost in the Vietnam War. It's close to what we lost in the Korean War. It is greater than what we've lost in every war since Vietnam, more than Afghanistan, Iraq, and everything in between. There were genocides against black people following the Civil War, and people don't talk about it. And it happened all over the country. Black people were killed by the thousands. That book or that film, Roots, where Alex Haley and them showed that black people just had a good time in Reconstruction, is a goddamn lie. Black people were subjects to white racial terror. I have another book that I'm going to pull out and talk about the violence against blacks. But in one county in Louisiana by itself, 1,200 blacks were murdered in 1868. 1,200. Terrorist violence disrupted an election debate on September 4th, 1875 in Clinton. Caldwell, running for re-election to the state Senate, was a participant in the debate, which was witnessed by more than 1,000 blacks and approximately 100 whites. The Democratic candidate spoke with no incident, but after Caldwell began his speech, heckling and other disruptive behavior by whites escalated into shooting at the predominantly black and Republican audience, resulting in the death of 4 people, 2 whites and 2 blacks, and injured to 9 others, 4 whites and 5 blacks. Blacks fled Clinton, seeking refuge in Jackson, a Republican stronghold in the swamps and woods. Caldwell, along with others who retreated to Jackson, demanded that Governor Ames provide weapons so they could protect themselves. Who's going to arm us when the Turner Diary people come for us? Are you no good gay ass pastors? Are your Black Lives Matter trans going to help? Are your boule people going to help? Are your black environmentalists going to help? Are your society bitches with the big hats that have the big philanthropic events that raise money to pay off the expenses of the event that don't help anybody, are they going to help? Will the NAACP help? Will the SCLC help? Will the National Asshole Network help? Will the AME Church help? Will the Kojic Church help? If you don't strap up, you're basically a active participant in your own genocide. If you don't want to live, trust me, there are people that want to take your lives. In subsequent days, the terror continued, targeting Republicans, black and white, and Clinton, with dozens of people killed. The reign of terror spread throughout Hinds County without a significant response from President Ulysses Grant or the Union military to suppress the terrorist onslaught. Mississippi Republican Governor Adelbert Ames mobilized citizens loyal to the state Reconstruction government to form 7 companies of the state militia, recognizing the level of genocidal violence being waged on their leadership and communities. Black people answered the call for forming militias for the defense of the white supremacist onslaught. Recently emancipated blacks were willing to defend their liberty, lives, and newly acquired political and human rights. Caldwell, who had previously defended himself in the streets of Jackson, was one of those citizens demanding arms to protect the state government as well as the freedom and humanity of his people. 5 of the companies consisted exclusively of black men. The first militia company, mobilized Company A of the 2nd Regiment of the Mississippi Infantry, was commanded by Caldwell, who was appointed the rank of captain. While some black militia members possessed military experience as Union soldiers from the U.S. Civil War, the black militias were not as well equipped or trained as the former Confederate pro-democratic paramilitary forces. Anybody that wants to get training for firearms, you have my email. I know people that can train you. Why wait? Now, y'all talk about what your asses would have done had you been enslaved. Well, you're still a slave. What are you doing now to save your damn life? Huh? Who are the loudest voices? In fact, I want to say this about black men. Most of the people training to have guns are black women. Black men, you're fuck ups watching sports. Cut that shit out. The new sport needs to be having a warm gun. However, they did possess the determination and the will to maintain their newly won freedom. In an interview several decades later, black Mississippi State Senator and militia leader George Washington Albright remembered, "Our militia helped fight off the Klan, which was organized by the old slave owners to try to make us slaves again, all but name." You think they don't want to make you slaves now? You guys are stupid. On October 9th, 1875, a little more than a month after the attack on the Clinton political debate and the raid on his home, Caldwell carried out a significant military campaign. The company under Caldwell's command had the responsibility of transporting several wagon loads of weapons, praise the Lord, to another militia company composed of black men in the town of Edward Station, southwest of Clinton. Returning from his mission, Caldwell consolidated his forces with two other predominantly black companies, leading 300 soldiers, approximately 200 armed. That means 100 didn't have guns. You wouldn't go to an orchard without a condom. Why would you live in violent, racist America and not have something to deter people from attacking you or your family? Buy a weapon for someone you love, even if it's yourself. 200 people armed into Jackson, recognizing Caldwell's determination that a major engagement might encourage federal intervention. Democratic leaders ordered their paramilitary forces not to engage the troops under the captain's command. These people are strategic. They decided not to fight because they didn't want to have to fight people. These people are bullies. The only way that you can stop a bully is to kick them in the ass and stomp them. While they did not defeat the black militia on the battlefield, the Democrats were able to defeat them in the courts. 1 month prior to Caldwell's march through Hinds County, Democratic lawyers filed motions to prevent the state from allocating resources of the Organization of State-Supported Militias. The state Supreme Court ruled in favor of the Democrats, and on October 12th, 1875, 3 days after Caldwell and his forces initiated their march, Governor Ames demobilized the state militias. They did a gun buyback, coons. There's nothing new under the sun. Buyback, it's betrayal. It's a sellout. Anyone talking that stuff is some kind of enemy. The disbanding of the predominantly black militias significantly weakened the defense and resources available to Mississippi's black communities 10 years after the end of chattel slavery. A reconstruction based on democracy and radical reform was doomed to failure in the face of a white supremacist armed rebellion. Insufficient federal intervention, like a black anti-crime bill, which we don't have at present, and some of you jackasses watching voted for Joe Biden. I don't hear these fuckers talking now. We've gotten nothing. It's 3 years into it. They haven't even admitted to being wrong. Again, insufficient federal intervention on the decision not to provide arms to the black majority. White supremacy would be the order of the day in Mississippi for nearly a century. Within 10 weeks of the decision to disarm black militias, Caldwell was assassinated. They kill off the leaders, the ones that will stand up. And we're trusting their government, their systems, their institutions, and their coons. Their sellout appointed leadership, FBA, Tether, and otherwise. During the 1870s, black political participation was a primary motivation for white supremacist violence. Black political participation accounted for 83% of the recorded mob violence of the period. The federal government allowed its Southern adversaries to back into the Union through violence, terror, and disenfranchisement of black people of African descent. The U.S. government and the National Republican Party proved unreliable allies as the valiant men like Caldwell were assassinated. Black political officials were deposed and black masses were forced into agrarian peonage. Any of you that are familiar with Mississippi and the Mississippi Delta, blacks up until the 1890s owned 90% of the land in the Mississippi Delta, Within a generation, they were down to 10%. We need our motherfucking money. We continue to be robbed. Being disarmed is inviting genocide and persecution. Anyone that speaks against being armed is a traitor. There is no in between. I don't give a damn if they're an old nigga that's lived too long or if they're a young Negro that listens to Black Lives Matter. I don't care if it's your mother. If you don't have something to check people, and anyone that would tell you not to have it is an enemy. Peonage is another word for slavery. So they were forced into agrarian slavery. With the Hayes-Tilden Compromise of 1877, any pretense of federal intervention in Mississippi and the former Confederacy was dropped for decades. A war was waged in the South to place emancipated blacks, and the words of Du Bois, quote, back towards slavery, close quote. Terrorist violence was unleashed to secure the white planter elite in power and to perpetuate a system based on white supremacy. The specter of violence remained as a means of intimidation and social control. In the decades following Reconstruction, lynching became common in the state. Between 1882 and 1940, 534 blacks were lynched in Mississippi, the highest total in the United States during that period. That's not exactly true. They're leaving out the mass murder of blacks in Arkansas with the Helena, Arkansas genocide. Not exactly true. And it's also not true for the East St. Louis genocide that may have killed as many as 1,000 black people. But officially, they always downgrade the number of blacks being killed. And none of your black historians, no Henry Louis Gates, none of them that you see with Roland Martin, anybody, none of these historians have really demanded a real accounting of how many of our people have been murdered. We go with what numbers white people give us, like they give us in the census. We're always 10%. These people have been lying. The British Empire was established on piracy. That's theft and lying. And it's never stopped. They got Manhattan off of lying, and they've been lying about everything. Let's stop playing games with each other. The federal government ignored terrorism waged against black people. They're still doing it. Congress and the president took no action to prevent lynching, and the federal government did not prosecute the perpetrators even when the event was publicized at least a day in advance. With white supremacist violence as a major vehicle used to intimidate and suppress within decades, black people were excluded from representation and participation in electoral politics, and apartheid was institutionalized in civil society. A tendency increased, and the white planter hegemony and apartheid consolidated itself in Mississippi politics and civil society. Blacks responded to white domination and violence in a variety of ways. Leaving Mississippi in the South was one option to escape terror. Of those who stayed in Mississippi in the South, some attempted to survive through accommodation to white domination and build institutions without coming into direct confrontation with white power. Isaiah Montgomery, a prosperous black farmer entrepreneur and founder of the black town of Mound Bayou, proclaimed this is a white man's country, let them run it. Montgomery was a lone black delegate in the 1890 State Constitutional Convention. He argued that disenfranchising blacks was a fearful sacrifice to maintain peace between the races. The convention would implement a literacy provision that was literally used to disqualify potential black voters. While Mississippi was in the minority of the Mississippi's black leadership, accommodation did characterize most of the direction of the state's black politics in the decades between Reconstruction and the Civil Rights Movement of the 1950s and 60s. Prior to 1940, few leaders attempted legal challenges to disenfranchisement. Similarly, direct action protests were not the order of the day. As in the 1904 streetcar boycott was the only documented civil disobedience campaign that occurred prior to the actions organized by the Student Nonviolent Coordinated Committee in the early 1960s. While black Mississippians did not openly protest the existence of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People and the Universal Negro Improvement Association chapters is an evidence that elements of the African descendant community aspire to do more than live by accommodation under apartheid. Mary Lawlinson argues while the NAACP from its inception from 1910 until 1920 received a significant amount of correspondence from Mississippi, the organization had difficulty organizing in Mississippi due to the fact that it had to have 50 members who had to pay $1 a year in order to establish a chapter. She also argues that Klan terror disrupted the attempt to organize the NAACP in Mississippi. NAACP chapters were initiated in Vicksburg in 1918 and Mount Bayou in 1919, but foundered shortly after starting. Neil McMillan reports that in the 1920s and 1930s, every concentration of blacks throughout the state expressed interest in the NAACP. However, by 1929, only Jackson had established a branch, which would also collapse and be reorganized twice in 1930 and 1934. In 1940, a resurgence of the organization took place with chapters in Meridian, Pittsburgh, New Albany, and Natchez, followed by a decline in the NAACP state membership the following year from 377 to 100. While efforts to organize the NAACP chapters in Mississippi were meager compared to those in other southern states, the continued attempts in the context of Mississippi's intense racial terror also reflect the determination of some blacks to not completely submit to white domination. In a manner that Nan Woodruff argues consistent with democratic anti-colonial movements globally, NAACP activity would increase in the state after World War II. In contrast, during the 1920s, 56 UNIA chapters were organized in Mississippi, 35 of them in the Delta. The contiguous Arkansas-Mississippi Delta was the most purely pro-Garvey region in the United States. In 1923, a local UNIA convention in Marigold, Mississippi, attracted 1,500 participants. Unlike the NAACP, the UNIA only required 7 people to begin a chapter. At the height of the UNIA activity in the state was from 1922 to 1928. The arrest and deportation of UNIA leader Marcus Garvey and the little attention that its southern base received from the national leadership and the organization's newspaper, New Negro World, resulted in a decline in its membership in the South. Let me stop here and say that the UNIA was dominated by tethers. The tethers never fight for us in the South. Never have, never will. They're over 1 million in Florida. They do not work with us. They're in Georgia. They do not work with us. Their numbers are growing in Texas. They're not working with us. The Caribbeans go and other people go to the cities where it's safer and pontificate and talk about how backwards we are. They don't help us. This is why we don't need to run after Gaza or any place else. We need to fight for the South. We need to fight for our motherland here. That's my damn Gaza. That's my Khan Yunis. That's my Nablus, my Bethlehem, my Jenin. My Gaza City is right here in the South. And that's the only thing I give a damn about. I could care less which of you is Pan-Africanist. Run and tell them I said kiss my ass. It's here or it's no place. The UNIA wasn't interested in blacks in the South. They didn't help us. In fact, Marcus Garvey and them talked to the Klan and didn't talk to the people. Talked to the white folk who hated our guts, but couldn't talk to the people risking their lives to follow. Beware of national organizations that have hierarchies that are not concerned about the grassroots. It's the bane of many of these black organizations, including the churches. They're not worth a damn if they're not willing to sacrifice something for the rank and file. That's how you can tell who's real and who's fake. Other developments occurred between the post Reconstruction era and the 1940s that would serve to nurture the upsurge of activism during the 1950s. While this was a period when direct confrontation with white power was not common, the development of economic and social institutions as well as organizations within the black community was essential to the activist campaigns and the armed resistance of the 1960s and 70s. The community building and economic and social development of black Mississippians have just as much significance to the civil rights movement as the NAACP and UNIA, if not more. While not openly in contradiction to white domination, the building of churches, civic organizations, lodges, educational and financial institutions, as well as businesses during this period, provided resources for the black freedom struggle and for armed resistance in the later period. Collective armed resistance was not common after the defeat of Reconstruction. The Black Uprising in Tunica County in 1874 and the militant armed defense of Leflore County black farmers in 1889 are examples of collective armed resistance in the decades after the Civil War in Mississippi. Armed resistance of the post-Reconstruction period does not generally manifest as intentionally organized collective action, but rather as emergency self-defense, often in the form of individual acts in response to the threat of white violence. In 1889, in Greenville, a black man, Moses Wesson, was ordered to leave a white saloon. In response to the demand to leave, Wesson asserted his right to do business where he chose. When a white man attempted to forcibly move Wesson from the bar, the black man shot and killed him. After his individual act of resistance, Wesson was shot and killed by the saloon owner. In June of 1920, Simpson County black tenant farmer Jim Brady questioned his account with the landlord. Whites flogged him, resulting in 3 blacks and 1 white killed. In the same year, Hinds County farmer Sandy Thompson provided labor to a white farmer, E.B. Hobson, in exchange for a hog. A dispute ensued when Hobson came to Thompson's home and demanded the pig back, citing dissatisfaction with the black farmer's work. Thompson shot and killed his white adversary and sought refuge in the wood, anticipating revenge from local whites. Not only was Thompson captured and lynched by local whites for his act of defiance, but his mother-in-law, Rachel Moore, was also hung by the mob in Rankin, a neighboring county. I want to say to you, I have relatives in Mississippi. Their last name is Moore. This was very unpleasant to see this. One of the most dynamic stories of black sharecropper defiance was the case of Joe Pullen. In 1923, Pullen, a 40-year-old black tenant farm in the Delta town of Drew, disputed owing a $50 debt to a white planter, W.T. Sanders. Sanders, accompanied by another white man, J.D. Manning, came to the home of Pullen to collect the debt. Pullen defiantly responded to the white man's approach to him by sullenly talking to Sanders with his hands in his pockets. Considering this an act of disrespect in the midst of the debate, Sanders demanded that Pullen remove his hands from his pocket. Pullen appeared to comply, but was holding a handgun as he removed his hands from his pocket. Pullen then fired and shot the white farmer through the heart. After shooting Sanders, Pullen retreated to his mother's home and accessed more weapons and ammunition, seeking refuge in a ditch. Pullen ambushed a pursuing white mob of more than 100 men. Pullen killed 9 whites and wounded 9 others in a 7-hour-long gun battle. Reinforcements had to come from neighboring Coahoma County, armed with a fully automatic machine gun to subdue and kill Pullen. The mob tied the corpse of Pullen to the car and dragged his body to Drew to terrorize black farmers. In the savage ritual of lynching, Pullen's ear was severed from his body and displayed in a jar. The white supremacist posse also showed off Pullen's shotgun as if it was a trophy awarded after an athletic event. Some blacks heralded Pullen's actions as heroic and exemplary. In the January 24th issue of the UNIA's Negro World reprinted an article from the Richmond Planet, headlined Negro Tenant Farmer Shot to Kill and Should Have a Monument. The article hails Pullen's resistance as one of the most remarkable fights that's ever been recorded in this southern country of ours. The attention that the UNIA gave to Joe Pullen incident was reflective of the interest that its Southern membership had in defending their humanity and their communities from white supremacists. Garveyites in the Deep South considered strategies to confront white terrorist violence. On August 12, 1922, during a UNIA International Convention in New York, Marcus Garvey presided over a special session titled Lynching and How to Correct It. The Negro World reported at a special session on August 12, 1922, reflected belief that the Southern Convention delegates that lynching would be eliminated by meeting force with force. Recognizing the historic strategy of white mobilization and reinforcement by neighboring states and counties to overwhelm black resistance and the Southern Black Belt, UNI member Harry W. Kirby of Chicago insisted that the higher level of coordination and organization on the part of rural blacks was necessary. Kirby argued, quote, the characteristic of white men was to impose on others who were unable to protect themselves. When lynching is contemplated, white people organized to nearly the entire community to get one black man. The remedy was better organization of the Negroes to the UNIA. If some means were devised whereby various divisions of the UNIA within a certain radius could get a rapid communication with each other, the moment any trouble was brewing and confront the lynchers with organized force, blacks, there would be no lynching. The fact that the UNIA members were considering such tactics demonstrates that they recognize the insurgent potential of their organization in the black majority counties of the Deep South. Some Garveyites articulated a strategy for black solidarity to fight lynching, possibly referring to the anti-lynching campaigns of the NAACP. S.R. Weeder, delegate from the southern border state of Missouri, argued that lynching would be eliminated by collective armed resistance, not by legislation. Weed argued that if black men would fight in Europe during World War I, black men in America and other countries can by uniting himself, settle and do away forever with the evil of lynching, the greatest and most monstrous curse of the age. Southern Garveyites envisioned Joe Pullen not fighting alone, but joined by other heroic figures to smash lynching and white terror. The heroic black man challenging and defying white domination is a historic construct of black culture and consciousness. Black Southern folk culture produced two gendered cultural constructs, the bad Negro and Brer Rabbit, which are useful in analyzing black resistance to white violence and domination. These cultural prototypes have origins in the traditional African society, but were constructed in slavery and are active in contemporary black experience and U.S. culture. Reinforced by individual and informal actions of legendary black resistors, these cultural constructs contributed to maintaining black insurgent consciousness in the era when accommodation was a dominant ideology in Southern black communities. The bad Negro construct is very important in black folklore and Southern culture. And white Southern culture, bad Negroes were those who openly defied segregationist customs and were not deferential to whites, as was expected in white supremacist social etiquette. To white segregationist society, the behavior of the bad Negroes was considered uppity, sullen, dangerous to the security of the social order. Blacks had a less ambivalent response to bad Negroes, who were seen by some as troublemakers and revered and respected by others. Some lived vicariously through the actions of bad Negroes, who sometimes behaved and lived as some blacks dreamed and wished they could. In black folk culture, the bad Negro is revered and depicted as in an honorific manner. In the context of the segregationist ethics, blacks who possessed the resources of physical space to avoid constantly being subjected to the humiliation imposed on the majority of black Southerners, were also considered bad Negroes. This is particularly true of blacks who, due to their own resources, could, unlike their sharecropping brothers and sisters, live in existence semi autonomous from segregation of society, particularly in rural areas. Bad Negroes were often those that owned enough land to survive and support their households without being involved in agrarian peonage. The people don't want you to have motherfucking money because it would make us bad niggers that don't need them. This is a deliberate system of dependence in which we've been locked. So we have to scrape and bow. Reparations and resistance is necessary. MFM, everybody. In 1964, there were 1 million acres of land owned by Mississippians of African descent. In black majority counties or in contiguous African descended communities, black landholders and their offspring proved to be more defiant to white supremacist codes of behavior. Ed Cole, a 1960s civil rights activist who later became a Democratic Party official, grew up in a land owning family in the black majority Jefferson County in southwest Mississippi. Cole remembers that his father would not allow his children to work for white planters. Often privileged blacks would restrict their offspring from working for whites so as to protect their children from racial indignities and disrespect. During the dominance of apartheid, white dominance was so attached to the concept of black servile labor that black men could not wear a white dress shirt downtown during weekdays in Fayette, the Jefferson County seat. Wearing a white dress shirt was equated with not engaging in servile labor and was reserved for privileged whites during the week and blacks only on the weekend, which was the only time when blacks had periods of leisure during daylight hours. Providing an example of his father's defiance, Cole cited the time when his father confronted whites who were hunting on his property without his permission. Cole spoke with pride of his father's stance to protect his family and courage he displayed in a white supremacist environment. Often guns were necessary to preserve the dignity and security of land-owning bad Negroes facing reprisal from whites. Oral testimonies of several black Mississippians reveal a collective memory of armed resistance of landowning bad Negroes challenging racist whites. SNCC activist MacArthur Cotton remembered black owners in his home county of Ottawa cooperating to defend their community from night riders. After emancipation of the Civil War, blacks began to occupy land one-third of the county and form contiguous communities in the hills of Ottawa. Cotton remembers black landowners setting traps to protect the communities from night riders. In Madison, a black majority county in the central region of the state, C.O. Chin was a revered bad Negro in the black community and freedom struggle. Chin acknowledged his reputation as a bad or crazy Negro began with an incident that occurred when he was a teenager. Chin was also born in a family that owned 154 acres of land. Since his family was privileged as a young man, Chin did not have to engage in labor during the week and was often observed wearing dress clothes. In keeping with Cole's description of apartheid in Jefferson County, the thought of a young black male not engaged in servile labor was upsetting for some whites, many of whom believed Chin was a bad example for other young blacks. C.O. Chin's mother told him that a local white planter approached her and insisted that the young man either find work during the week, preferably with the white employer, or leave the county. Upon hearing of the white planter's demand, Chin asked his mother, "Mom, do you owe this man any money?" After learning neither did she nor the family owe the white planter anything, he asked his elder permission to resolve the problem. According to Chin, he went to the white planter's plantation and surprised him with a .38 handgun and politely warned him to stay out of the Chin family's business. Chin stated that this incident won him a reputation of being a crazy nigger, whereby the arousal fear of local whites and admiration of blacks. As an adult, Chin would become one of the most revered activists in the Mississippi civil rights movement. Miss Annie Colton Reeves grew up during the Depression years in Algiers County community in the Pike County in the southern part of the state. Her parents owned several firearms, including a Winchester rifle, a 22 rifle, a shotgun, and two handguns. Her father would say it's better to have ammunition than have food. She and her siblings, two brothers and four sisters, were all taught by their father to use firearms. It was important to the Colton patriarch that his daughters became proficient in the use of weapons to protect themselves from white rapists. According to Annie Colton, her family had known in their community was known in their community for being a defiant family that stood up to white folks. Defiant blacks in the vein of Joe Pullen were acknowledged as bad Negroes solely due to their exceptional acts of armed resistance. One of the most extraordinary examples of this type of bad Negro is the case of Edward Eddie Noel in Holmes County. Holmes was a majority black county in the southeastern part of the Delta, in the central region of the state. In January of 1954, Eddie Noel, a 28-year-old black man, shot and killed the son of a white store owner as a result of a dispute in Ebenezer, near the county seat of Lexington. Noel was ordered by the owner to leave the store. After Noel left the store, he noticed the owner and his son approaching the porch, believing they were coming to shoot him. Noel shot and killed the store owner's son, 30-year-old Willie Dickard. Noel was a U.S. Army veteran and a sharpshooter. Local lore suggests that the Army veteran had the reputation for shooting matches and cigarettes out of his wife's mouth without harming her. Newspaper accounts and local oral history seem to differ on what occurred after he shot the store owner. Newspapers, generally based off the sheriff's reports, asserted that when whites attempted to apprehend Noel, the black sharpshooter killed two more whites, including the deputy sheriff, John Malone, and wounded two others in separate shootouts. The official newspaper account said that 3 weeks after surviving in the woods, Noel turned himself in after being pursued by a posse that included the county sheriff, the state highway patrol, and over 100 volunteers. While Noel was a fugitive, terror gripped the county's whites. White Holmes County journalist Hazel Brannon Smith remembered it was bedlam. Nurses and other female employees, many of whom lived in the area between the hospital and the Manhunt area, were afraid to go home even in daylight. Their families were worried and frightened. The floor of the hospital was made comfortable for the women who did not want to leave. Black oral accounts claimed that Noel outdueled and scattered a posse of whites organized to kill him. And this version of the incident, when the white posse worked in coordination with 500 members of the National Guard, supported by the Highway Patrol and the FBI with surveillance airplanes, all participating in the manhunt, attempting to capture and murder Noel in his refuge in the woods. Using search and destroy tactics, the white posse harassed Holmes County blacks, believing they were providing assistance to Noel. Fearing his survival was becoming an embarrassment. State officials offered a deal to Noel if he would turn himself in to authorities. After surrendering, Noel would receive protection and be taken from Holmes County to Jackson to ensure a fair trial. Noel accepted the offer. Both accounts agreed that Noel was declared unfit to serve trial due to mental illness and sentenced to the state mental hospital in Jackson. Reflecting the pride of black folks and bad Negroes, Holmes County activist T.C. Johnson reflected on the impact of Noel on Holmes County blacks. It did give some black people the idea that they didn't have to take the beating and running and abusement like they had been. I heard a lot of them say it was good that someone had the courage and the nerve to stand tall like a man than be treated like an animal. Johnson's statement implies that bad Negroes served as an inspiration for the development of the civil rights movement. The action of bad Negroes served as examples of courage necessary for activism in the struggle. While black resistance was often recognized and honored in the form of defiant bad Negroes, the insurgent actions and consciousness were often not visible and public but covert. Bad Negroes like Joe Pullen and Eddie Noel were exceptional. In Southern black folklore, whether they were animal characters like Brer Rabbit or personages like High John the Conqueror, black folk tricksters used deception and manipulation to overwhelm powerful foes. Like such tricksters of black folklore, most black folks feigned deference while maintaining oppositional consciousness, quietly rejecting assumptions of white supremacy. It was more common for blacks to show disdain for segregation and white people in general in the privacy of their own communities, hidden from the eyes of white society. Based upon his experiences growing up in Purchase, Mississippi, the prolific black novelist Richard Wright described this phenomenon. The white South said it knew niggers. Well, the white South had never known me, never known what I thought, what I felt. The white South said that I had a place in life. Well, my deepest instincts had always made me reject the place to which the white South had assigned me. It had never occurred to me that I was in any way an inferior being, and no word I'd ever heard fall from the lips of a Southern white man ever made me doubt the worth of my humanity. The majority of Southern blacks maintain two selves, a persona for white society and another within their own world. Historian Neil McMillan described the dual consciousness and behavior of the apartheid era Mississippi blacks as accommodative demeanor that often masked a resentful spirit. Some actualized their oppositional consciousness in the form of clandestine oppositional action in the South, where blacks lived under white supremacist terror. Black freedom activities were often concealed from white people. Mary Robinson argues that the UNIA military, the African Legion, possessed a more clandestine character in the rural South than did its urban and northern counterparts. The thought of blacks openly organizing defensive violence could not have been tolerated in the system of white domination. Along with the church, much of the organizational life of the African descendant community took place through the secretive fraternal organizations. Fraternal organizations provide the mean of solidarity and not anymore, y'all. Not anymore. Uh, Fraternal organizations provide the means of group solidarity and cohesiveness in Southern Black communities. Black fraternal orders provided resources such as leadership development, cooperative financing, meeting places, and access to membership for Black freedom and other social justice organizing in the South, including the NAACP and UNIA and sharecropper unions. Due to their sense of solidarity and clandestine practices, that means secret societies, people. Lodges also provided local, regional, and national networks and relationships, which could be useful in escaping lynch mobs and law enforcement, as well as in organizing self-defense. Like the folkloric trickster, the Black freedom struggle utilized the sleight of hand to evade the power of their adversary, white terrorism, to fight segregation rather than engage in direct confrontation or acquiescence. Some Black Southerners chose a straight lick with the crooked stick, an New World African proverb meaning utilize deception to meet your objections. Unable to rely upon law enforcement and the courts, Black Southerners were forced to develop clandestine networks for protection and survival. Black oral tradition and journalistic accounts speak of an underground railroad or a Negro underground, which helped blacks evade Southern lynch mobs and secure safe passage outside the Jim Crow territory. In 1958, black journalist Arrington High arrived in Chicago claiming he had escaped the Mississippi State Hospital with the assistance of the Negro Underground. According to High, he had been confined to State Mental Hospital for his public advocacy for school integration and his exposure in the newspaper Eagle Eye of the segregationist white male tryst with black women. High escaped the state institution, was transported to Mississippi, concealed in a casket, utilizing secrecy and deception was necessary to ensure the success of an underground network. Those black Mississippians who decided to stay and live in Mississippi had to endure the terror of apartheid. From Reconstruction until after World War II, the global, national, regional, and local political landscape did not provide the opportunity to overcome white supremacy and segregation. While the end of Reconstruction represented a significant defeat for the Black freedom struggle, there was still hope. Black preparations through community and institution building, as well as their maintenance of a culture of resistance, would serve as the foundations of a movement in the next period. How do you guys like We Will Shoot Back? Who likes this? 18 people out there. Who likes this? Who else is going to get this book? Y'all like this? I like this. We're going to come back to this. This is my one of the books. Angry Black Men's Book Club. We're going to be talking about protecting ourselves. Protecting ourselves. We must protect ourselves. We need more guns, not fewer. Anyone talking about buyback is a traitor. And I pray my strength in God that I have a gun or guns actually. So yeah, support my. I may even get a firearm GoFundMe. Um, I won't tell you what I'll get. I'd like a street sweeper. You know. Hold on one second. Uh-huh. So everybody, y'all ready for Shirley Chisler? It's 12 something. So let me see if I can put in a good hour. Because I have to go to church tomorrow. That's gonna be a trip. But it's for a good cause. Okay. I'm back to Shirley Chisler, y'all. Shirley Chisler. Okay, let me ask y'all again. And by the way, support the Angry Black Men's Book Club. I need 1,000 subscribers so I can start going live. 1,000 subscribers. I need you. And I may not do whole chapters, just giving whole books, but I can give you chapters. Point you to a good book. Brother Roland, this is a good ass book. Everybody needs this. It's an excellent book. And there are others. There are others. Okay, so let me put this aside. And thank you for your patience. I'm sorry that they gave us difficulty. Yeah, I know that this is the Angry Black Men's Book Club. For station identification, I am your host. I am the Coon Buster. I am the MFM Field Marshal. I am president of the Black American Constitutional Political Action Committee. I am one of the coordinators of an informal group called the Chocolate City Coalition in Washington, D.C. I hate illegal immigration. I hate racism. I hate injustice. I hate people bothering and harassing our communities. Gay rights has nothing to do with black people. I could care less. Okay, so you said don't get a street sweeper. Well, it's a firepower, maybe an AR-15, but I'm not trying to be like Kyle Rittenhouse. How y'all doing? Y'all ready for Shirley Chisler? Isn't she ugly? Isn't she terrible? I can't believe what God has done, putting an ugly mug on someone. But isn't she ugly? Made from the. Hold on, wait a minute. Let me do Stevie Wonder. Can you imagine Stevie Wonder looking at oh, she's so ugly. She's so ugly. She's so ugly. Anyway, all right, let me stop clowning. I'm gonna stop clowning. Let's get down to the book. Y'all ready? Shoot, let me get my book. Got my little book stand. It's bamboo. I have another one. I think I need to get a bigger one. I'm going to get a bigger one next time. So here we go. And this is a Shirley Chisholm book. Chapter 11, The Black Feminist Power Manifesto. Let me drink. Damn. I'm going to have to need some. God, help me get through this. Help me get through this, Lord. Amid her growing fame in 1971, Chisholm published an autobiographical book that would considerably enhance the mythology of charisma, idealism, and ambition that surrounded her. The resulting volume called, oh, wait a minute. Did I read this? Wait a minute. I did this last time. We're not in 11. We're in 12. Yay! I don't have to read this. Oh my God, this is so much less to read. Oh, I thank you, God. I'm in 12. My bad. My bad. 12. Institution building, the Congressional Black Caucus. Or as I say, the Congressional Black Circus. The Congressional Black Caucus and the National Women's Political Caucus. See how she's like playing both of them. It just starts off with some bullshit. Okay, we'll start again. Don't blame me. I shoot. Chisholm's second term in office was devoted to much the same substance as her first term. But in 1971, Chisholm's work turned increasingly towards institution building within the alliances to which he already belonged, especially among other black and female Congress people. Chisholm's coalition approach bridged the politics of race and gender as she worked with both black male colleagues and feminist colleagues within the House of Representatives. Her second term brought Chisholm to the committee assignment she had been waiting for, the Education and Labor. Conventional wisdom on the Hill was that she got it because of her loyalty to Hale Boggs and his successful quest to move up from the House Majority Whip to the Majority Leader. Winning had required Boggs, an establishment candidate, to court non-establishment members like Chisholm. But Chisholm maintained that she had endorsed no candidate for leader, and she had simply requested the assignment at a meeting of the New York delegation, which had unanimously supported her choice. She was one of four other black members and two other women members on the larger committee. Her subcommittee assignment was to the Select Subcommittee on Education, but she would find herself and her staff lending expertise across subcommittees. Her black feminist power pragmatic approach, democratic and collaborative, makes her work difficult to find in the archival record. Her effectiveness as a legislator would not come not so much in the form of sponsoring bills or passing on her own legislation. Rather, her strategic handling of committee work and legislative procedure laid groundwork for later successes and solved problems without fanfare. Victory was usually slow in coming. Some battles would need to be fought more than once. Indeed, the front of these battles were not only on the floor of the House or even in committee meetings, but in the informal networking across the Hill. The unwritten nature of Chisholm's contributions make it difficult to track her impact on national policy. But she and her staffers were convinced that they were able to get further by working off the record, having experienced the limelight of the Chisholm mystique. The Congresswoman knew that such notoriety could backfire. She thus leveraged her influence to share and give credit to her colleagues and erase her own work from the historical record. I want y'all to know I smell bullshit. Anybody with her kind of ego, you don't mean you never took credit for anything. That doesn't make any sense. They weren't as effective as they're saying. I'm not saying they didn't stand up, but you mean that you can't find you nowhere, you ain't sponsored nothing. I'm not saying you're not working, but you're working hard and maybe not working smart. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that. Let's just move on. Passing legislation that would benefit her national constituency of poor, non-white, young, and/or female American was Chisholm's priority, and she didn't care whether her name was on it or not. Chisholm was considered also considered the future implications of new laws in terms of governance. It is one thing to get legislation passed, but another to have it implemented effectively. There's so much legislation on the books, she told a UPI reporter in 1970, but the difficulty is implementation of these laws. Wait. Wait a minute. Let me look at something. Okay, I'm going to keep doing this. Getting support from a broad base was essential for implementation. The best way to build support was to solicit ideas and input from everyone, even those who differed ideologically. Thus, she and her staff approached colleagues across party and ideological lines when an issue might call for collaboration. They might write legislation or amendments that other members then introduced. Her staff was empowered to act autonomously, to communicate with staffers across the Hill, a responsibility that they took seriously. But collaboration did not mean abandoning the office's guiding principles of doing the true, the right, and the beautiful. Chisholm consistently reminded the staff that change would be limited without an intersectional approach. Chisholm had been part of the Congressional Black Coalition, the Democratic Select Committee, from January 1969 to early 1971. In 1971, the response to the growth and the rising expectation of its members, as well as Nixon's civil rights conservatism, the group formalized into the Congressional Black Caucus with a slate of two officers. God, I'm thinking I read this before. I did read this before. Wait. Let me make certain. No, let me stick to this. Wait a minute. Yes, I did read this. I can skip this too. I went over this before. Whew. I'm sorry, guys. I was like knocked out when I read this stuff. I was really tired the other day. I apologize. I will not interrupt this again. I'm on page 203 of the book. I didn't realize how much I got read the other time. Okay, well, please bear with me. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to like bullshit you. This is a good chapter anyway. This is a chapter I wanted to. I wanted to go through this book thoroughly. So, pardon me, I'm trying to be very, very, very consistent. I'm on chapter 13. Oh, it was arduous reading this feminist, harsh, annoying prose. All right. Pardon me, guys, for two false starts. It happens. She repeats herself a lot. It becomes confusing. All right. This is Chisholm 72. This is going to be a really good chapter. So let me say that Chisholm 72. I may go up to 17 and have some fun with this because this is wild. But I'm definitely going to do this. Okay. I won't do this. I won't stop ever again. I know I didn't do this one. I got ready. I am. Oh my God. Shirley Chisholm's presidential campaign was an attempt to win that acknowledged the impossibility of winning. Presidential politics is a big time, high stakes game, and it is played by tough, sophisticated politicians with plenty of money and plenty of skill. She wrote in her second book, The Good Fight. My own participation in 1971 and 1972 was a unique one-shot phenomenon, an effort by an amateur supported by a crowd of idealists. but she knew something had to go first, and she felt compelled to do it. She simply felt that she was positioned to run a serious campaign that would open up the doors for black candidates and women to seek offices in the future. That was it. I wasn't even thinking about what would happen if I got it. I didn't really think about all these things at all. All that was on my mind was I had to do it. I had to open the door ajar. She campaigned in Florida, California, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Michigan, Minnesota, Colorado, and North Carolina, and appeared on the ballot in a dozen other states. The idea was to bring a substantial block of delegates to the Democratic National Convention in Miami so as to be in a negotiating position. She had no illusion that she could actually win the nomination. She was, in fact, ruthlessly pragmatic. No Democratic candidate would be able to beat Nixon, she maintained during and after the campaign, except for Senator Edward Kennedy, with Arkansas's Representative Wilbur Mills as running mate. Her analysis rested not on her particular affinity for Kennedy or Mills, but on her calculus of what voters would do on election day. A vote for a recognized name at the top of the ticket with the Southern vice presidential candidate just below. She was determined to see the campaign through to the convention, to help turn the convention towards drafting Kennedy if possible, to influence a platform, to get promises from eventual nominee to prove a point that someone besides a white man could run. She had succeeded at the latter, but in doing, she violated political protocols that included paying one's dues and working through established channels. She insisted on following her own script when it came to running her campaign. The result was irritation mixed with the grudging admiration from black and women colleagues and activists, as well as the concern that she might be able to block the nomination of another candidate that might win loyalty from black and women delegates otherwise. Far from seeing her Catholic relationship with the black freedom struggle and the women's movement as liabilities, Chisholm's black feminist vision of political power made her think she was uniquely suited to build a strong coalition. She envisioned a campaign organization, a voter base of people who were black, female, young, poor, or all four. By introducing racial and gender equality simultaneously through the symbol of her own person, she thought that she could build a voluminous tent that would encompass Americans of all identities. In her dream, those within her tent would recognize each other as allies and come together as a committed electoral coalition that could bring enough clout to the Democratic Party to move the platform and the eventual nominee leftward. She repeatedly called herself an instrument through which all constituents had a voice. As it would turn out, the coalition would never come to be, although she would become the first woman and black American to carry delegates at the Democratic National Convention. It was irrelevant to Chisholm that her unilateral decision to run annoyed other black politicians and feminists. She was asserting her right to run despite her extremely slim chances. She had an unshakable amount of confidence in herself and her convictions. I ran because someone had to do it, she wrote. In this country, everybody's supposed to be able to run for president, but that's never really been true. I ran because most people think the country isn't ready for a black candidate, not ready for a woman candidate. Her Congressional Black Caucus colleague and strongest supporter, Ron Dellums, admired the campaign for the sheer audaciousness of it. She was not damaging to get in. She was not demanding to get in. She was asserting her right to be in, he observed. Sherwood Downs agreed that it was Chisholm's self-confidence that allowed her to run. She certainly thought she was smart enough to be president. Downs said that there were people who called her an egomaniac for running, but virtually everybody that runs has to have that little self-confidence, Downs admitted. Still, Chisholm saw the campaign as an empowerment exercise and not an attempt to gain personal power. Not only could everyone fight City Hall, Downs explained, but you can become City Hall. The result is political education for both the National Organization for Women and for the Black Panthers, as both organizations became empowered within the political process. Armed with the courage of her convictions, I had a mind of my own. You can't tell me what to do. Chisholm would say later, in her view, her great strength was self confidence, aggressive, no nonsense, articulate, and decisive. She added, I really can't think of my weaknesses, though acknowledged that others might criticize her stubbornness and iconoclasm. She conceded that I had too much confidence at times, maybe at times, I don't know. I was such a confident person, I was not afraid of anything or anybody. Later in life, and perhaps even in 1972, Chisholm admitted that she did not think that someone so forthright and outspoken could actually be elected president because of the money and the lobbyists needed to win. Yet, one of her campaign workers recalled that on the toughest days of the campaign trail, Chisholm would wonder at the condemnation aimed at her, suggesting that she was unaware of how her persona and that face rubbed influential people the wrong way. Nevertheless, Chisholm found herself reaching across the racial and gender lines out of the campaign trail and attracting a wide coalition of supporters. Indeed, she was able to raise 250,000, most of it from small donations. Though the total expenses were close to 300,000, it took 3 years to pay off the remaining debt once the campaign was over. She had been stunned when supporters in Florida and Minnesota, many of them women, raised $10,000 between them within a month. She had challenged their insistence that she run by pointing out she would need money to do so, and they proceeded to do just that. When they sent me the money, I was very much, I was, I was very much afraid. It shook me a little bit because then, if I didn't run, they'd have called my bluff and say, "Oh gosh, what have I got myself into?" And that's how it all began to grow. Eventually, she would have 16 or 17 satellite offices throughout the campaign. Supporters were creative in their fundraising. They held fried chicken fries, fashion shows, and dances. The most that any group raised was between $4,000 and $5,000, which alarmed Chisholm because she knew how much more would be needed. But she said that the enthusiasm and her following kept her going. With a heightened national profile, a loyal cadre of students and women urging her to run, and an awareness that the Democratic Party took so much of its base for granted, it now seems like a logical decision for Chisholm to think about a presidential bid. At the time, however, it was anything but. Supporters were vocal but few in number. The New Politics, Democrats, and Chisholm's own CBC colleagues seemed to have never thought about women as candidates. The coalition, who understood the overlapping constituencies, feminists, black politicals, and young anti war activists, was only composed of a few within each of those groups, and they argued amongst themselves. But of course, so still Chisholm was intrigued. For one, the student audience, wherever she lectured, kept pleading her to run. She had built a strong image among college students for her opposition to the Vietnam War, and because of her many speeches on university campuses. In these speeches, she attempted to do what she had outlined in the Young in America's Future, the chapter of Unbought and Unbossed. She pushed students to see themselves as the catalyst for transformation. She was especially in demand during the commencement season, giving speeches at Rutgers Douglas College, Hampton University, and Howard University, plus many others. She encouraged Howard graduates to fight, but to fight intelligently. She was interrupted 19 times by applause from the crowd of 11,000 who cheered the loudest when she mentioned her refusal to vote for any military appropriations until there was a ceasefire in Vietnam. The students pushed her to run, to consider run, excuse me, When are we going to change things? Asked a young man at one Southern university. Chisholm did seem to gather strength from the overwhelming reception she received, which was marked contrast to the doubts and rebukes from her critics. And she thought that the response that she got from young people was important politically. She believed that the failure of the Democratic Party in '68 had come about in large part because of the split between younger radicals and the liberal establishment, and she thought she could bridge the liberal radical gap, and she loved the idea of being a trailblazer. Chisholm had begun her explorations for running for president in the late spring of 1971, looking for opportunities for a coalition between her multiple constituencies in order to demand a response from the government. Groups in 25 states organized in their own way for her as a presidential candidate. Their support pushed her to run, even though she knew that hell was going to break loose. Okay. By summer, Chisholm was warmer to the idea. She was a featured speaker at the National Welfare Rights Organization's Fifth National Convention on the campus of Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island, and used it to float the idea of running. The convention was focused on electoral politics. George Wiley, he's a black man, the head of the National Welfare Rights Organization, had envisioned a convention in which members would be encouraged to participate in the electoral office either as candidates or for office or delegates to the National Convention. On July 31st, she spoke to 1,200 members of the National Welfare Rights Organization in a stirring address, telling of her hopes of a coalition between young voters, women, Chicanos, Indians, black people, and poor people. Dressed in a yellow suit with the welfare, not warfare button, she urged the cheering audiences to seize political power. She shared her analysis that welfare was essential as a recognition on her part of the government that the American system had failed to provide adequate educational opportunity and job training for all Americans. It is a further recognition that it's an absolute right of every human being in this country to have an adequate diet, sufficient clothing, decent housing, and proper medical care. At that moment, she explained that her CBC colleagues were holding meetings across the nation requesting that their colleagues make no firm commitments to political parties so that no party could take black votes for granted. In conclusion, she raised her right fist in the Black Power salute to a thunderous applause. At the news conference after the speech, Chisholm disclosed the exciting tidbits that she might run for president in '72, and she was open to the possibility of running as a third party candidate in case there was no acceptable Democratic nominee. The New York Times covered the announcement and concluded that Chisholm was running, not as a black candidate, but as a feminist, seemingly under the impression that the two were mutually exclusive. The New York Times got that one right. Feminism and black don't go together. Chisholm was not the only one thinking of getting a black candidate into the race. Other black leaders had started considering a strategy for 1971. The CBC had at one point tossed around John Conyers as a possible candidate. Jesse Jackson, head of Operation Breadbasket of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, was reported to be pushing for a black presidential candidate. He envisioned a third party for this purpose that would draw together black and anti-war voters. Conyers was his chosen candidate, and despite the disagreement between Jackson and the CBC over the third party issue, he claimed that he would be consulting him as he made electoral and legislative plans going forward. At the same time, there were rumors that he would be working with Carl Stokes, the black mayor of Cleveland, on pressuring the Democratic Party to run a black vice presidential candidate. In September, Jet Magazine released the results of a reader's poll it took on whether a black person should run for president. 98% of the respondents said yes, with 30% choosing Georgia activist and state representative Julian Bond. Stokes got 27%, Conyers got 13%, Massachusetts Senator Edward Brooks got 7%, and Chisholm got 5%. Of the group, Only Conyers and Chisholm expressed an interest in running. Meanwhile, black male leaders were strategizing. Listen to this. Chisholm agreed with her black male colleagues on two main counts. The Democrats were taking black voters for granted and that they could take the black vote of delegates to the National Convention, thereby influence the nominee and the platform, but she was not part of the conversation. In August of 1971, the National Democratic Party of Alabama, a multiracial rival to the state party, sponsored by the Southern Black Political Caucus in Mobile, Alabama, Bond, the Alabama gubernatorial candidate John Cashin, and Fayette, Mississippi Mayor Charles Evers led the gathering. Among the invitees were all black elected politicians in the South, the New Democratic Coalition, and the New Party. About 400 participants came. Chisholm, along with several of her colleagues in Congress, had originally planned to be there but did not attend. Among the workshops was one on the delegate selection, which armed the participants with the specifics of how each southern state would choose its Democratic delegates to the National Convention. The nation's analysis of the meeting suggested that a black man should run for president because, first of all, it would be a shock and surprise. The, the average shock and surprise the average white. Also, a black presidential candidate would motivate many black voters to register and vote and perhaps run for delegate seats themselves. By doing so and fully taking advantage of the DNC reforms, these voters could bring pressure to bear on the Democratic Party. However, Bond urged those present not to endorse any candidates yet. No permanent friends, no permanent enemies, just permanent interests, he cautioned. Bond, now with Manhattan Bureau President Percy Sutton, Congressman Gus Hawkins, poet and activist Amiri Baraka, and Coretta Scott King brought black political figures together in Northlake, Illinois, near Chicago in late September for what was supposed to have been a secret meeting. Bond was developing a favorite son plan to run popular local candidates in states and districts that had significant black populations in order to win primaries, build blocks of black delegates for the convention, and get black voters to turn out. His idea was that the local committees would choose their candidates, but already names were being floated. All the CBC was invited to Northlake, along with the leaders of the major civil rights organization. But Chisholm did not go, feeling at that point she might become a center of dissension. And neither did Conyers, Stokes, and Ralph Abernathy at the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Chisholm sent her aide and her future campaign director, Thad Garrett, who reported that Baraka and Roy Enos of the Congress of Racial Equality had stationed bodyguards at the base of the staircase leading to the meeting room. I might remark that no elected black officials I know have bodyguards, she said crisply. Only the self-anointed and media-anointed ones, and they must know better than why I need them. Chisholm's colleague, Washington, D.C. delegate Walter Fauntroy, who was present and would eventually decide to run as a favorite son, Richard G. Hatcher, mayor of Gary, Indiana, and California Assemblyman Willie Brown also were dominant voices at the gathering. They planned a convention for the next year. Some of them were optimistic about Chisholm's candidacy. However, Bond and Brown in particular agreed that they thought black politicians from New York had too much say in the planning the direction of black politics, whether because of Chisholm's New York origins, her sex, or absence from the meeting, or the combination of those factors. Those present followed Bond and Brown's leads and declined to support her. Undeterred, Chisholm grew more and more convinced that she needed to go forward. The fact is, she observed, that there was a vacuum into which I was propelled. The Northlake meeting had failed to produce a consensus black candidate. It wasn't supposed to, surely. Now she's a tether. All of these black Americans meet, and this tether decides, you know what? I don't need you guys to run as a black candidate. But you should support me even though I didn't make the meeting. Okay, cool. And look, Julian Bond and the other people who had risked their lives down the South getting beat in jail. She thinks her being up in New York and hanging out in the islands is the equivalent of black folks suffering in the South fighting for the rights to vote. This is how tethers act. Just keep following me. Okay, she was convinced, failed to produce a consensus. She felt more strongly that someone would have to press the white candidates on a platform and policy. How's she going to do that when you're a foreign black and the majority of us are FBAs? Okay, she thought she could bring a coalition together, so she needs a coalition because you're not a black American. She thought she could bring a coalition together that could pressure the DNC. By November 1971, she had some grassroots scouts in over 24 states and plans to run in at least 5 primaries. Her momentum was building. One journalist wrote that she's probably the most powerful black woman in the United States. Chisholm seemed to be behaving as if she was. She certainly thought that she was the best candidate because paradoxically, I was not only the black candidate but also the woman candidate. She thought herself to be the most able to get votes, to have the largest dedicated pool of volunteers, and have genuine grassroots support because she envisioned her candidacy as bridging racial, ethnic, and gender lines. She was a candidate of anyone who wanted to change the status quo, who held power in America, which was a large group. And there was the rub. The black politicians and activists expressed concern that Chisholm would represent women more than she would represent black people. At the North Lake Conference, an unnamed person argued affirmatively that the first black presidential candidate should be a man. She ran into sexism again soon after that. And how's it sexism? How's this Latino bitch going to tell us what we black Americans want? She wouldn't dare do this. See, see how this feminist thing comes? They all end up on this woman thing. This is exactly what the people were saying. This person's saying it's not. Sexism is when black folks caucus together and decide what they want. A person from another group with another person from another group, both female and feminists, know better than what black people want for themselves. Think about this, people. Think about this. She ran it. It's sexism when we want a man. Martin Luther King was a man. I hate to say it. Who gets killed the most in the struggle for black people? Black men or black women? Don't lie. So why couldn't men be considered first? I don't care how you see what I said. In October, she was invited to speak at Jesse Jackson's Operation Breadbasket Expo. As she took the stage, she walked by a group of men standing together. One pointed her out to the other and says, "There she is, that little black matriarch." It's true. Chisholm was incensed. She felt the sting of angry tears. When she reached the podium, she abandoned her planned speech about black unity. Instead, she addressed sexism. Women were intruders in politics in the eyes of men like these. And the most black men were like these. She repeated her claim that she encountered more barriers as a woman than as a black person. Bullshit. And then announced that she would not ask permission of black men to run. She couldn't pull this shit in Barbados. Um, Black men are soft. Black American men do not. Black men are way softer than any other group of men in the world. Bullshit. Would never pull this shit in Barbados. It would never go down. Feminism is the enemy. Black men's permission to run. Black men, listen to this. Black men, get off my back, she explained. She then questioned black men's dedication to all people. We got to be for everybody now. You get this? All people. While she was seeking support from her male colleagues for the Free Angela Davis campaign. Y'all know Angela Davis is a lesbian that was with the white woman. They had been mute, she pointed out. Thus, black men leaders had no business questioning her commitment to helping black Americans, she angrily declared. Angela Davis was in the Communist Party. She was a hot potato. They're involved in giving guns to people who killed a judge. Politically, they couldn't have touched Angela Davis. If anything, the resistance from the male colleagues made Chisholm more determined to make the bid. Their disapproval grew at the CBC conference of black elected officials at the Washington Omni Shurham Hotel in late November. Chisholm had been named chair of a panel on early childhood education, but had no leadership role in the heart of the conference's business, a session on national political strategizing. Louis Stokes had been named and had named an all-star panel for this task. His brother Carl Stokes, mayor of Cleveland, the up-and-coming state senator Barbara Jordan from Texas. I guess that's sexist. She was gay with the white woman, by the way. Percy Sutton, and Howard Lee, the mayor of Chapel Hill, North Carolina. The panel was fielding questions from the audience of elected officials when a fellow National Women's Political Caucus member and black state representative from Florida, Gwendolyn Cherry, asked the room why our presidential candidate is not here. For a discussion on increasing political power, Cherry had publicly endorsed Chisholm in late September, acknowledging her chances for victory seemed very slim, but arguing that Chisholm would make some of the candidates address themselves to the human necessities of life. Dramatically, Chisholm rose up from the audience and took the microphone. It was incomprehensible, she announced, that a presidential candidate, the highest black woman elected official, and the DNC state committee woman from New York, was not invited to take part in the discussion. You had better wake up, she snapped, and this criticism aimed at her male colleagues. Louis Stokes and the panel made no overt response to Chisholm, though Sutton did take a dig at her idea of coalition politics, claiming that black activists needed to coalesce within ourselves. Be one, FBA. Now watch this whore say that he's sexist. Watch. Representative Bill Clay was incensed at Chisholm. Chisholm knew about the session on the national strategy. He would write her later, and simply sowing seeds of discord, and she was simply sowing seeds of discord at the CBC. Chisholm's broadside of immeasurable venom left him flabbergasted by an unexpected and unjustified intrusion. And private congressmen who refused to be named in the press, but who likely included Stokes, explained that they thought an all-black meeting should decide which candidate to run, despite the fact that the two prior meetings had failed to settle on one. In other words, Chisholm had jumped the gun in defiance of those who saw themselves as national black leaders, and that leadership snub broadcast their anger loud and clear. Chisholm forged ahead. She was adding more primaries to her incipient campaign and seemed committed. As the fall went on, she got more attention. The Boston Globe's Mary McGrory called Chisholm a whiplash of a woman who was not afraid to act alone. While the men were meeting in the back room of the Chicago hotel last September, trying to figure out which of them would go first, Chisholm slipped out and threw her head into the ring. She told McGrory she would announce in January that she had raised $250,000, whichever came first. In November, a testimonial dinner to honor at the Americana Hotel, she said she would make her announcement in January. Mayor Lindsay was in attendance and wore Chisholm for President button though he did not make a formal endorsement. Appearing with Bella Abzug, I believe she's Jewish. I don't know if she's a stud or not, but she's rough looking. At an Albany conference on women and electoral politics, Chisholm again asserted that she would run in North Carolina, Florida, California, and Wisconsin at least. When Ed Koch asked if she would be his running mate, she replied with a wink, "I don't think this country is ready for a Jewish vice president." At a campaign stop in East St. Louis in December, McGovern conceded that Shirley Chisholm had a good record, but it's no better than George McGovern's record. "I was fighting for the same things she supports long before she entered Congress." Her staff was incredulous at first that their boss was serious about running. "I thought she was out of her ever loving mind," Carolyn Smith recalled. "I was not the only one. Shirley Downs thought she had lost it, and so did her colleagues, but Downs understood. Shirley Chisholm basically makes up her mind herself. She doesn't go around consulting with people. She consults herself, then tells you." Chisholm's press aide, Pat Lattimore, was concerned about her safety, as was Conrad. "She gets hate mail and threats," Lattimore said, "but if she plunges to a crowd of all kinds of militants, I get very worried." Her family was surprised too when her sister Muriel Ford heard that Chisholm was running for president. She was living in Barbados, where she had moved in 1971. "Well, I thought maybe she wants to try it. Why not?" Ford said. Thad Garrett, concerned, warned Chisholm that the work that was involved in running a presidential campaign, in addition to a congressional campaign every 2 years. Some CBC colleagues were hostile, such as Bill Clay. In contrast to Clay, Dellums was supportive and understood that she was trying to pave the way for others. Charlie Rangel was also supportive. These are two congressmen versus sexism people. Despite the fears about her sanity, safety, and/or corruption, Chisholm felt driven to try. "It's almost somebody from above, from the brother of God, telling me, you can do it. Go do it," she recalled. "The thing about it, for better or for worse, I have a tremendous confidence in myself. Tremendous confidence, maybe too much, always have." Chisholm's opponents in the Democratic primary were much better funded, white men, including the early favorite Edmund Muskie and then U.S. Senator from Maine George McGovern, U.S. Senator from North Dakota, an eventual nominee, and chair of the committee that reformed the national conventions after the debate of '68, Henry Scoop Jackson, U.S. Senator from Washington, and her old ally from New York, John Lindsay, former Vice President Hubert Humphrey, who had won the nomination the previous cycle, Alabama Governor, and demagogue George Wallace. Her respect for these men was tepid. She would later say that Muskie and Lindsay felt like a sense of entitlement, though Humphrey turned out to be kind and nice. She also faced an uphill struggle with the press, who concentrated on the racist favorites and thus gave her little exposure, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. She was limited by the increasing reliance of presidential candidates on television appearances that would come later to be called sound bites. With her slight lisp, she had this all for life, and formal demeanor and short video and audio did not do her justice. She had the capacity to energize audience, but this worked best in the longer format appearances. Covered with sexism and racism towards her candidacy, these challenges represented a major obstacle. As one reporter who covered the 1972 campaign for the Washington Bureau of the Los Angeles Times put it, "There's always a concept in political journalism of a tier system, in which the judgment of the reporters would decide which candidate was the top priority to cover. And you have to be a first tier and second tier and a third tier. I would say in '72, Shirley Chisholm was in the fifth tier," as a reporter recalled. Chisholm spent the first half of '72 holding down two jobs as a congresswoman and a presidential candidate. Her weekday schedule in the campaign trail was to get up and have office hours in Congress, then sit in the House chamber at noon when it convened, and then around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, fly up to a campaign stop, even though the House session would go until 6 or 7. If possible, She returned to the district at 9 or 10. She usually had an aide within the final months of 4 or 5 Secret Service officers with her, but did not travel with many people. She recalled that she made her rival Scoop Jackson in particular nervous when she showed up without an entourage. The other candidates would be getting last minute briefings or makeup, and she would walk in by herself. Before Chisholm was Before Chisholm was polling at 5% nationally, she had no Secret Service protection. Humphrey, Muskie, McGovern, Jackson, and Wallace got Secret Service guards, but Chisholm did not. The criteria was that an announced candidate had to get 5% or more in a Harris or Gallup poll, even though Chisholm had gotten more than 5% in another public opinion survey. She was not guarded by the Secret Service until May, when George Wallace was shot at a campaign stop in Maryland. Conrad Chisholm and Victor Robles stepped in as bodyguards in the meantime. Conrad gave up his insurance fraud investigations and he traveled everywhere with his wife, often listening to comments about him as he sat incognito in the audience. Robles got a permit to carry a gun to protect her. Because of her threat to the status quo, Robles was often afraid for her safety. I would have given my life to make sure that Shirley Chisholm continued to be what she is, he swore. Once the Secret Service detail was dispatched to the campaign in May, the Chisholms set up a base of operations for the agents in their home in Brooklyn. There were 3 shifts. Although the agents were overwhelmingly male, each shift had a woman on duty so she could accompany Chisholm to the restroom. These agents were delighted that the Chisholms provided a room and a card table and a television set in their home, a gesture that no other candidate made. Apparently, guarding Chisholm became a plum assignment. The agents would show their affections by gifting the congresswoman with a binder at the end of the campaign that contained photos of Special Agent in Charge John Paul Jones and agents on each shift, as well as Chisholm's campaign and office staff, and complete itineraries from the 2-month period in which they guarded her. Although Chisholm would prefer to avoid discussing the campaign's physical dangers for the rest of her life, her run carried a real risk. She was aware of 3 attempted attacks in her life. On one occasion, she finished speaking in a large ballroom, then began to greet people in the room. The Secret Service noticed that there was a man shadowing her as she moved. Then they saw his hand go into his pockets. They apprehended him. He had a large knife and planned to stab Chisholm in the back. Robles also recalled that someone tried to enter Chisholm's room during a campaign trip in the South. A chandelier in Boston mysteriously crashed to the ground where she was standing moments before. She also received hate mail, some simply questioning her right to run, and some of it threatening. It did rattle her. When stopping in Memphis, she resisted staying in the Lorraine Motel, where Dr. King had been assassinated 4 years before. My Lord, amen. There was no other choice of accommodations, however, and Chisholm wound up keeping her aide, Helen Butler, up all night, fretting about being attacked. Her staff was jittery also and insisted on one having them travel with her and help reassure her and calm her down. They could be threatened too. On one staffer's trip to North Carolina, he waited at an airport baggage claim for his boxes of brochures and bumper stickers, each of which had a sample of its contents stuck to the outside. The boxes rolled on the carousel with the "Nigger Go Home" handwritten across them. Far more numerous and visible than those who wished her bodily harm were Chisholm's devoted supporters. Observers of the crowd at her speeches were impressed by the enthusiasm, although some thought she was physically unattractive. Me, I think so. Physically unattractive, and noticed her lisp when she began. The audiences invariably became adoring as she spoke. One Massachusetts voter wrote, If the press could have heard the supporters of Shirley Chisholm and felt the granite like solidarity of their movement, they would not ignore her impact on American thought. A faculty member wrote from a community college in Baltimore that he was a McGovern voter, but that he and other black Americans could not love McGovern as we love Shirley Chisholm. Humphrey once remarked to her that if his campaign workers worked as hard for him as hers did for her, he would have been elected. A former Democratic committee woman from Minnesota wrote, "Smart, tough-minded, and shrewd, Chisholm put together a small surprise package at Miami Beach." Chisholm was the public face of her campaign and a woman, but there was a group of men behind the scenes. Conrad, Mac Holder, Thaddeus Garrett, and Victor Robles. Conrad continued to take care of Chisholm and their home. He cooked her meals and cleaned the house. Conrad Chisholm was liberated, said Robles. Why is it liberated when the men are cleaning up, but it's slavery for women? That's bullshit, people. Hmm. Holder was a campaign manager. Genius, he was genius, Chisholm would later recall. Mac Holder and Conrad were both sources of encouragement. Late in 71, they had listened to Chisholm's complaint that her candidacy was not taken seriously and encouraged her to go ahead and announce in January. Thaddeus Garrett served as a manager of sorts in Washington. Both Holder and Garrett were good tacticians, but found it quite difficult to manage the racist invective towards the candidate. Garrett had been elevated after the first campaign manager. Garrett Robinson resigned during the Florida campaign. Garrett, a serious young black Republican, did most of the press work. Robles remembered Garrett's formality. We used to kid him. What black man went around calling himself Thaddeus Garrett III? I remembered, he made sure that I emphasized the third. Robert Gottlieb, a summer intern in 71, went on to work on Chisholm's campaign in Florida, described Garrett as a counterbalance who was more establishment. Garrett's presence was valuable to someone who was comfortable working with House leadership himself, who put white male politicians at ease. Bob Gottlieb was a white Cornell University senior from New York City. He had gone to work for Chisholm in Washington as a congressional intern in the summer of 71 because of her principled stances and willingness to fight the white establishment. But he quickly learned his boss was also savvy politically. Chisholm appointed him to the National Youth Coordinator for her campaign. Though he had almost no experience, I really didn't know what I was doing. He found himself in charge of a major aspect of the campaign, traveling to North Carolina, Florida, Wisconsin, and California, as well as upstate in his native New York. He was not paid enough to cover rental cars, gas, or hotels, so he slept in a dorm room or people's houses. Campaigning on campuses was very inexpensive, and he found himself operating as an advanced person for such appearances. He would approach student leaders and ask them if they wanted to help organize a rally, and then contact local media about an event. Eventually, he was promoted to field coordinator. He had some successes, though he felt like an outsider, a white man working with black supporters. Chisholm had made a decision to run and put her team in place. Now she had to build a voter coalition and make her case to voters that her black feminist power approach to electoral politics was precisely what the country needed to address racism, sexism, and Vietnam as the cultural fissures divided the United States. Y'all want me to keep going? I think I can run on like Oprah's old song. Let me see if I can do 14. Oh yeah, I can do 14. I think I can do 14. I think I can do 14. I think I can do 16. I don't know if I can get to it. Let's try. Or should I stop? It's 1:30. Hey guys, should I stop here? Let me know. Because I'm going to do this book, or I can wait. Because I've been at this for a minute. I've been at this 4 hours. I think I can stop. Let me stop here. We're going to pick back up on 14. Is that all right with you guys? I'm going to stop here. I'm going to stop here so I don't oversleep for church tomorrow. Or as I say, crutch. Because you don't know Jesus. I want to remind everybody to Share this, like it. Um, we're gonna do more. We're gonna do more of these. I will do this earlier. I started late today. Of course, this is my Sabbath, so we may be doing more tomorrow. Look for announcements. Absolutely. You know how to bless. I've got this on Vimeo. So I have a Vimeo channel. I've got to work on the Rumble. So this is on YouTube, Facebook. Some of it was on Instagram. Let's do what we can to get this out. We can do this again. I don't mind doing this again. But let me stop here so I'm refreshed tomorrow. We're going to come back and do some more Shirley Chisholm. But I really like this book on black guns. I want us to do this again. So I want to wish all of you a happy MFM. Blessed Sunday to you who are worshiping on this improper day of worship. But I absolutely want to see you guys tomorrow. I will be doing this. I'll try to do it frequently. I enjoy this. And I may introduce other books. So thank everybody for being with us tonight. Again, this is the Angry Black Men's Book Club. I'm your host, Dr. Randy Short. Cash App is Dr. Randy Short with a $sign. Patreon is Dr. Randy Short. I would love to have Patreon supporters. It won't kill you. The Zelle and PayPal are wrandyshort@gmail.com. There are a couple more books I want to get you. I have no idea. I've got I need to pick up maybe something I don't know, about $3,000 worth of books, and I'm gonna be reading these. But not that anybody has to do that. But you know what? I have enough people following. Please like the channel. Please tell people about the YouTube channel. Please support it. And there's more, more. And I'm hoping that Sister Temple will be in touch with me so we can talk about the illegals in Chicago. The Angry Black Men's Book Club will not be limited to just books. If there's a pressing, important issue in your city or town, and you've got something reliable that you want to talk about, reach out to me because we may be launching other shows. We're open, and we'll do this whether it's with Q, whether it's with Juan, whether it's with Chef C, if it's with my friend Black Rose. We want to help give voice. So we'll be doing books plus. So anyway, you know how to bless. wrandyshort@gmail.com is PayPal and Zelle. The Patreon is Dr. Randy Short. The Cash App is Dr. Randy Short. My webpage is www.angryblackmensbookclub.com. We have a YouTube, and of course I have Facebook pages. All you have to do is go in and Google. And wherever I can put this stuff up, I will. We will get back together. Okay? Know this. Much love to you, MFM, and strap up or be knocked down. Okay, y'all. Good night. Love everybody. It's time to get up out of here.